Hello and welcome everyone to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott and we are here for Friday night's big preview. Yes, it's a big one. That's because we've got 4 shows to preview all in this big old stream. We'll also maybe touch a little bit on ROH as well, but we're mainly talking about NXT Great American Bash. We're talking about AEW All In Texas. We're talking about Saturday night's main event. And we're also talking about WWE Evolution. So there's so much to break down. We're going to be here over the next few hours doing exactly that, getting into predictions, so getting into last minute rumors, and just talking about the state of the wrestling industry, seeing as these companies are pitching against each other quite a bit at the moment, especially because one of them seems to find weekends that the other one's already booked quite often these days. So it's an interesting time to be a wrestling fan, and there are plenty of shows to dig our teeth into this weekend alone. So we're going to do that right after this.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
All right, once again, welcome back to the channel, guys. It is time to talk about this big weekend in wrestling. As I say, it's a nice hot summer's evening here in the UK, but we've got a hot weekend of action coming up to talk about as well. So really excited to break down rumors and kind of predictions and things like that as well. And of course, over the weekend, we'll have our build-up coverage going into each of these big shows as well. So again, I told you we're going big. We are going big this weekend, starting out with what better way than Friday night's big preview. This will be replayed. Parts of this, of course, clips on those build-up shows as well, but you'll also see us there with other members of the crew and hopefully friends from the wrestling media. But for now, it's just myself, and I'm going to be going through these shows one by one with you guys here tonight as well. So thank you for those already jumping out in the comments already. I know we've got Aiden in the house. Always good to see you, buddy. You say no Scotland, no party. We've got you in the house representing Scotland here, of course. Thanks again, as always. Casper's back with us as well. Good to see you, mate. It says, good evening, Scott. Hyped up for Saturday night's main event, Great American Bash and Evolution on Sunday. A big WWE weekend. You're exactly right there, Casper. Not just WWE, though. Of course, we've got AEW and, as I say, Ring of Honor, which we won't really touch on too much here, but important to note that that is also going on this weekend. Today, actually, of course, it's Friday. We've got SmackDown, and then when the weekend's over, what do you know? We're rolling through with Monday Night Raw and then NXT on Tuesday, Diamond Out Wednesday. So really, it's a big old week. But as far as the weekend goes, that's where the main event is really at. Well, 4 of the biggest shows at least. So again, we'll be breaking those down, including AEW as well. Aiden's been nice and friendly in the chat there to Casper. They have a nice little catch up as well. Always good to see the people again in the chat, kind of keeping each other company and keeping me company. Again, it's just me at the moment, so I really do appreciate you. And we want to know what you think is going to happen this weekend, what show you're most looking forward to overall, what match you're looking forward to, what surprises you think we might see, because I think that's a big key kind of part of this story now, is that we've got so much going on that's both companies are going to have to try and outdo each other, right? So it'd be interesting to see what surprises they've got up their sleeves. I do think that we should be at least getting probably a few from AEW anyway, because it is their biggest show of the year. But WWE are probably going to try and counter that with some big headlines as well, which I wouldn't be surprised to see. Casper says, I thought Raw was a bit drab at the start of Monday Night Raw, got better throughout the night. 7 out of 10. Yeah, as far as a go-home show, I mean, this has been the issue that a lot of people have been saying, really, as far as all of the WWE shows on this weekend, that they haven't been that well built. And I guess that's an issue when you've got 3 major shows going on in the same weekend, but yeah, they all seem to struggle because of it. Look, we'll get deeper into that as we go into each and every one of the cards themselves. But we'll start out actually with a WWE show. Let's start out with NXT Great American Bash. Now, quite interesting, I think, as far as this goes, an interesting note is that they recently kept branding things as WWE blah blah blah, you know, the NXT shows, but now they've started calling this, all the graphics say NXT, but their hashtag is going back to WWE again, so it's a bit confusing what they're doing here. I don't know if it's just to kind of differentiate on the weekend, but they've already got 2 WWE branded kind of, I guess, PLEs almost. Saturday night's main event's not really a PLE, it's a TV special, but it feels like one. And then of course Evolution is a kind of unique PLE in itself, of course, being a all women's PLE. Let's get into the Great American Bash. Again, I want to know what you think of this card. I'll be honest, we're starting on not a negative note, but this is the lowest kind of in ranking of my excitement levels over this weekend. Now, I'm sure they could deliver, and I think this is where these guys have a great opportunity to try and kind of steal headlines, essentially, which is going to be tough with a big weekend of the shows and incredible matches that, again, we'll preview throughout this stream. But I don't think people expect too much from the NXT guys in this one when you compare it to the other cards. But that being said, that means it's an opportunity. These are people scratching and clawing their way into big positions within WWE anyway. So if you're the one that steals all the headlines on a busy weekend like this, then what does it say for your career prospects going forward? But as I say, we are going to start with the Great American Bash. I'm going to start with this match here. So, of course, as I say, stack weekend overall, but NXT has got a few kind of matches where I'm not going to call them duds, but I'm just going to say I'm not sure what they're thinking as far as why they've stuck this on the card. So, of course, first of all, we got Jordynne Grace, Blake Monroe versus Fatal Influence in a, I believe this is no, it's just a regular tag team match. Now, this one here, and again, this is nothing against any of the people in this match, but surely it's leading towards what we're going to see at Evolution between two of these, essentially, for the NXT women's title. Now, does that mean this is simply here to kind of almost act like a go-home experience for that? I'm not quite sure, which is weird to do on a PLE. I mean, there's another weird booking decision they've made on this show as far as kind of trying to steal eyes away from another product and me not really being sure if that's going to cut it. But we'll get to that later on. But this is another one where I'm thinking this doesn't feel like a real match because not a real match, but like a PLE level match, because we're already seeing something quite similar between the two of these, where something actually matters, and there's a title line, of course, again at Evolution, where we will see Jacy Jayne go up against Jordynne Grace in a singles match for the NXT title, and here you see them again separate against each other, but with tag team partners. But is that where the kind of story comes in? Is it because Blake Monroe is gonna turn? I mean, surely Blake Monroe is going to be a heel. If she's not, I mean, she's kind of acting like a heel anyway, but surely that's going to be happening sooner rather than later. That's just basically what her character's like. I rewatched actually when she turned on Toni Storm in AEW just about a year, maybe just over a year ago now. Yeah, because it was leading into kind of All In, I think it was, wasn't it? But was it? But either way, whatever it was, amazing. And you think since then she became AEW champion and then just fizzled out, left, and then bang, she's shown up in NXT. So, look, this could be, again, a space where she steals headlines. She's done it already in her career. Maybe that's what this is here for. But then does that just play into Evolution? Again, some of these matches are going to play into each other, and they're going to play into different cards entirely, especially here with this match. But yeah, I don't want to be on a downer about it or anything like that, but I just don't. At the moment, I just don't understand why it's on the show. I feel like it might have been, something else might have been better positioned here instead. But if I had to kind of predict, let's say Fatal Attraction probably going to win because Jordynne's got to look not believable going into it, but she can't win twice, I don't think. And I do think, spoiler alert, that she's probably going to win at Evolution. So for me, let's just go with Fatal Attraction winning here. And I'm going to say it's because Jordan has been turned on by Blake Monroe. Right, let's get some of these comments here. I see coming in here as well. Aiden says, I've got some notes for all three WWE shows. Good for that. Good to hear that, buddy. Hopefully, we'll get through some of your comments here as well. Grace and Blake will win, as Grace won't win the title on Sunday. So going for the complete opposite as myself there, Aiden, but I appreciate it. Do you not see Blake turning soon then? See, that's what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking they're just going to do it as soon as they can. But maybe that story takes away from the bigger story, which is the title match on Sunday. But maybe that's where she turns. Maybe that's what this is all about, a kind of full sense of security. So you could be right, actually. And maybe she screws Jordynne Grace on Sunday, and maybe she doesn't turn at all. Fatal Influence versus Blake Monroe and Jordynne Grace. I'm looking for her to turn heel, says Casper as well. And Aiden is agreeing with my kind of second theory there, that maybe it's because Blake Monroe will be turning on Sunday. And again, we're going to get to Evolution and that card in more detail later on as well. Robert's in the house and says it began with the Young Bucks attacking Tony Khan. It will end with Hangman versus Noxley. Hangman finished the story. Great to get your comments, buddy. We're going to be touching on AEW in more detail very soon, but I appreciate your comment there as well. Let's get into more of NXT Great American Bash, but we will be again moving on to AEW All In Texas very, very soon as well. But I want to know your thoughts on the NXT card. Kieran's in the house. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Always good to see these familiar names popping up and the new ones like we saw Robert just a moment ago. Appreciate all of you. And if you're lurking in the background, hey, that's okay too. But if you could drop a comment, we'd appreciate it. Or if you just press like, subscribe if you like what you see. And what we do here is we break down cards, of course, in preview form. But before the weekend kicks off, we either have our weekend kickoff shows or like this, we have our big preview, usually for Saturday night's main event. But this time around, of course, for a huge weekend in wrestling. I mean, the name Big Preview didn't really fit much else beyond, a show like this, doesn't need anything other than a name like that, right? So let's move into, again, some more Great American Bash here. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe. We're going to be hitting you with build-up shows going into all of these 4 PLE/pay-per-views, depending how you frame them throughout this weekend as well. But again, let's take it back to the Great American Bash. Now we're going to talk about Ethan Page versus Ricky Starks. We're talking quite a bit about AEW here, and now we're talking AEW alumni. So an interesting one because, of course, these are going to be 2 guys that maybe are looking to steal thunder, not only because of their own careers within NXT, where you've got a champion already in Ethan Page and had a very kind of good start to his NXT career already. That you got Ricky Starks, who's coming in trying to prove a point and keep that hype up around him as well. But again, both guys haven't spent time in AEW. It's an interesting kind of little connection between the 2 shows there as well. Of course, because of course, if you're unfamiliar, NXT will be starting at the exact same time as AEW. NXT probably going to go about 2, maybe 3 hours as it tends to do. AEW about 15 hours as it tends. Okay, I'm joking. I like AEW, but let's admit their shows are long. I'm guessing maybe 4 hours for AEW, and then we're going to go straight into Saturday night's main event. So it's going to be interesting to see how segments are timed in between for these shows. But we'll talk a little bit more about that on tomorrow's build-up shows. We'll be doing a build-up for both NXT and AEW at the same time, because again, those shows are on at the exact same time. So again, if you haven't already, please subscribe and join us back here for the live portion of that show as well. I say live portion because what we're saying here will also be replayed on that stream at the beginning section of it as well. But for now, we are breaking down NXT. So let's get back to NXT's card. And again, we're talking about 2 guys who have made a splash in the wrestling industry on both sides of this brand war. Now, at the moment, though, you see, of course, Ethan Page is the NXT North American champion. I've got to say, still really enjoy that title design, by the way. It feels like it's been around for a while, which is scary because WWE usually get kind of a bit kind of, froggy with that sort of thing, and they want to jump in there and change it as quick as they can. So let's hope they don't hear this comment. But really like that title, and still looks good. Looks good on the shoulder of Ethan Page, but will it look even better on the shoulder or around the waist of Ricky Saints? I was going to do his little... I can't. I knew I'd do it wrong, so I didn't even bother. But a very charismatic guy. Again, very interested to start to his NXT career. Will he become NXT North American champion? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I think there are big things for this guy going forward. But whether or not he's winning the title on this weekend, I don't know, because I feel like there could be more story to tell with Ethan Page, and there could be more things for Ethan Page to do with the title as well before it's handed over to Ricky. But at the same time, I do think like WWE need to make a splash on this weekend, on a weekend where there is a rivalry, with another show going on at the exact same time. I think for Ricky Saints, as he's known now, to win a championship as he's on a show that's head-to-head with his former employer, I think that's a huge statement. So therefore, I actually do believe he might be doing it. So yeah, I'm actually going to go new North American champion Ricky Saints beating All Ego, Ethan Page. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Will that be quite a statement win or what? Aiden thinks Ricky wins as Page will be going after the NXT belt. Good point. Yeah, Page could be jumping up into that portion of the card for sure. Ethan Page versus Ricky Starks. Falls count everywhere. Good point, Casper. Forgot to mention that. Looking forward to this one. I'm even more looking forward to it now that you've reminded me that there is a stipulation here as well. Always got to enjoy a Falls Count Anywhere match. And yeah, we're going to get quite a few big stipulation matches throughout this entire weekend. But as Casper says there, Falls Count Anywhere for the North American Championship. Probably one of the matches I'm most looking forward to on this NXT card. Now, let's move on to what do we want to talk about next? Let's go into, the contract signing between Santana, Trick Williams, and Joe Hendry. Say his name and he'll appear at NXT Great American Bash, which I think last year he appeared at as well, doing a little concert, didn't he? Now, things are, the relationship between TNA and NXT has even developed even way further than it was developed at that point. And of course, we've got Slammiversary coming up, I believe, on like the 20th of July, something like that. It's coming up soon. And this is the big match that, of course, they're going to be promoting for that. Now, look, we've talked about the relationship between WWE/NXT and TNA for quite a while, so I won't go into too much here, but of course it does factor into their booking decisions. This is surely about getting eyes on Slammiversary, which is something that WWE have done quite a bit lately with TNA shows, but it feels a bit odd when it's Slammiversary and it's one of their biggest shows. It just feels it just reminds me, this is very TNA. It feels separate, but not anymore. Not in this day and age. TNA, NXT, very much kind of almost one in the same in some ways. So this is an interesting thing to place on the card because, look, as much as I like these guys, as much as I think putting attention on TNA's big show is a good idea, you need as much attention as you can get on this weekend because you are competing with what people consider to be the WrestleMania of AEW, of course, All In. Now, it's looking like a big card again, and we're going to break that down in more detail very soon. But what I'm getting at here is when you look at how stacked that card is, there's going to be a point, right? There's going to be some matches that aren't as kind of over as others or aren't as exciting or kind of inevitably have got to be the time that somebody goes and buys a chicken burger or goes to the toilet, right? But at the same time, there's not a lot of downtime compared to this NXT show. And that's where I worry that the NXT guys might start to kind of slip. Now, when you got a contract signing, what are we going to get out of this one? There's going to be no surprises, right? You can't really get much of any turns. You can't, there'll probably be a table spot or something like that. But there's not much you can get out of this. So it feels like this is the space where if people are watching two shows at once or flipping backwards and forwards as if it's the Monday Night Wars all over again, then they might kind of pay more attention to AEW. That's what I would do anyway. Now, maybe it doesn't matter because buy rates and all that kind of stuff is all a bit different these days. But for me, let's just put it down to where my volume is going to be up. It's probably going to be an AEW, right? And I don't even know what match is going to count in this segment, but I'd imagine I'm going to be a little bit more interested in what's going on in the ring on the other show than I'm on this one here. And that's nothing to do with the guys in this. It's nothing to do with TNA or anything like that. Again, I'm very pleased to see this partnership actually pointing some positivity in the direction of TNA and not just hogging it all for NXT. But this is the kind of thing that makes this show feel like a regular episode of NXT, which is a real shame. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Do you feel the same way, or are you thinking I'm getting this completely the wrong way around, and maybe there's a bigger picture to it, and it is worthwhile? Overall, again, want to know what you think is going to happen at this show and what you're most looking forward to. But for me, this isn't one of the things that I'm most looking forward to on this show. Casper says, I must admit, I do struggle to watch AEW at the moment. Massive fan of WWE, though. It's not as good. Now, we'll touch on AEW in more detail very soon. But yeah, of course, everybody's going to have their own little kind of preferences and things like that. And that's okay, Casper. Look, I've had a dip from AEW myself over the past few years. But I'm actually really excited for this show. And hopefully, this will get you in the mood as well. Ricky will use the chair like Page did, referring to the North American Championship match we mentioned earlier on. And Casper says, Santana loving his work in NXT. Yeah, me too. He's really doing well lately and starting to become a big star in TNA. I actually think if we're kind of looking ahead, he's probably the one picking up the win in this triple threat match at Slammiversary. I wish we were predicting the match. This is the thing, but we're not. bet TNA's got to get something, right? So probably for the best. Aiden says, Trick stands tall tomorrow. However, Joe wins the belt. That's why Ethan will go for the belt again. Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit more later on. But yeah, Ethan potentially moving up into that main title picture as well. F Squeeze is in the house with simply a W. Yes, W for you as well, mate. What a winning weekend, eh? We've got on our hands the big preview here, of course, for NXT Great American Bash, AEW All In, Saturday Night's Main Event, and WWE Evolution. Again, we're going to break down all of the cards in detail, but right now we are on the track for Great American Bash. So let us know what you think is going to happen, but that's it from me for the contract signing. Again, don't want to be on a downer, but simply put, not the most exciting thing. Now, this could be and should be a little bit more exciting, though, of course. We've got the NXT, it's the North American Championship, isn't it? Going on the line from Sol Ruka, of course, defending against Izzy Dame. Sol with Zarya, Izzy potentially, of course, likely at least, I should say, with Tatum Paxley as well. Now, this is one that I am quite looking forward to. Really liked what I've seen from these ladies on recent NXT shows. Now, NXT itself, again, we could be here kind of all day just talking about the kind of ups and downs of NXT as a product. I feel like the past few weeks, they've not done the greatest thing to get us in the mood for this show, considering what they're up against. They've kind of been thrown kind of, like lambs to the slaughter almost. And so have the girls on Evolution. We'll touch on that in more detail, of course, later on. But there's still opportunity here for these performers to, again, draw some eyes towards them and kind of steal headlines. And I think this is a match where that could potentially happen. Again, looking forward to it because I just really enjoyed seeing their work on previous NXT shows. Again, as I say, the build for this hasn't been amazing, but when you look back to some of the other kind of PLEs in the past, especially from Sol Ruka, really enjoyed what she's been doing lately. And of course, as NXT North American Champion, she's got quite the spotlight on her as well. For me, I'm going to say it will actually be a retention for Sol. I don't really... something's vibrating around here. So I don't really see the title changing, but hey, I could be wrong on that one. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think will be happening here. I'm trying to get to this comment here as well. Here we go. Aiden says, totally not biased by saying Joe. Yeah, I get you, mate. Dame wins. There is something planned for Sol. You're all about these future kind of title losses and then moving on, aren't you, Aiden? Now, Casper says, big fan of Sol Ruka as well. Hope she wins, like her work. Yeah, me too. I think that's it. I kind of want to see more of her. But unless, like Aiden says, she's going to be moving on to bigger and better things, moving up the ranks into the next division, then maybe this is the opportunity to take the title off her again. There is a need to draw eyes to this show. There is a need to kind of make things feel important. Not saying that a PLE isn't important from NXT, but let's be honest, there's something huge going on at the exact same time. So they really do need to kind of make waves here. So maybe, it would just be for the kind of title kind of changes and stuff like that to kind of get people to kind of pay attention. I'll give the plan when we do WWE Evolution. Brilliant. We're going to get to that later on, Aiden, as well. Fantastic. All right. So let's stick to NXT Great American Bash for now. We're moving into the next match. Now, again, this is one that doesn't seem to have had the best build, but one I'm still looking forward to because, really just think this will be a fun match. Jasper Troy, of course, going up against Javon Evans. Getting no title on the line, no massive kind of story behind it, but still, especially Javon Evans, I've been a huge fan of seeing what he can do in the NXT ring. So looking forward to this one. Just because I think Jasper, just because Javon, I should say, has been kind of, again, bringing a lot of kind of eyes towards NXT, in my opinion, I think he might actually pick up the win here because he has kind of really, really got people on his side. I mean, he's been kind of endorsed by legends when you've seen him on screen with them, and he always seems to pull off an incredible match with like kind of highlight reel type moments as well. So really looking forward to seeing what Javon can do here with Jasper. But for me, yeah, I'm going to go with a win for Javon Evans. Aiden agrees, but thinks it will be like via DQ on this one. Again, simple match here. No titles on the line. Not description. What am I trying to say? no special match is what I'm trying to say. Why have I lost that word? Stipulation. There we go. My goodness, that was difficult. Casper says, let's get to this one. NXT Jasper Troy versus Joe Evans should be a fun match. Yeah, that's it. I'm just looking forward to a fun match for this one. But again, it's another one of those where I don't want to be disrespectful to the guys, but without much build and anything else kind of really on the line, is this PLE worthy? I mean, the match could be, but the build to get to the match doesn't really feel like that. So it does feel a little bit of a shame in that sense. Let me know, guys, what are you looking forward to this weekend? What match are you looking forward to most on NXT Great American Bash? And what show are you looking forward to the most over this weekend? Keep the comments coming, and we'll get to those as we make our way through each and every one of these big cards. Now, moving into what is surely going to be the main event for NXT, we've got the NXT Championship on the line. Obafemi versus Yoshiki Inamura with Josh Briggs. Now, this one I think is sadly very, very straightforward, and that's because it feels like all of Obafemi's matches these days are straightforward. Now, Inamura I think is fun. Every time he pops up on my screen, I think he's enjoyable. Every time he is in a match, I have a good time watching it, especially when he's kind of tagging with Josh Briggs as well. But Obafemi is just kind of in a position that I don't think he's giving up anytime soon, especially not for Inamura. And that's a shame to say, but I just don't see WWE positioning Inamura in this position, in this way, to become NXT champion. Just feels like a kind of too much of a mountain to climb. I'm almost surprised at the way they use him already. And again, that's not saying he's not a great talent. It just doesn't really strike me as... It doesn't strike me as someone that they want to put at the top of their roster. Now, Obafemi, on the other hand, does, especially when you think, I know it's not NXT 2.0 anymore, but he kind of fits in with that kind of branding, right? Inamura maybe fits in with the old kind of black and gold NXT a little bit more, but still very entertaining. So seeing these two kind of worlds clash is quite fun in this modern NXT, but at the same time, you know, whether you're talking stylistically or not, Obafemi is a guy that they clearly want to push to the moon. Someday he'll be losing that title, but someday it's because he's going to be going up to the main roster. And I don't think that's happening just yet. And I don't think the person they're going to give the title to is Inamura. Now, the problem is for me, as excited as I am by Obafemi, his lovely little walk to the ring, this reign has felt a bit odd to me. And I want to go into more detail about this on the build-up show that I'm going to do on Saturday night as well. Lucas will be around, and hopefully he'll have a lot of fun things to kind of help me kind of dissect as well, because I think he'll have quite an interesting kind of take on this. But Obafemi, again, really enjoyable, but I just feel like his reign hasn't felt like the NXT title's been the most important match or thing on the card, because there's so much else going on. And maybe that's just a credit to the rest of the card and the other matches and the booking of those. But for me, I'm just not really sure where we go with Obafemi and what they're waiting for. It just kind of feels like he's the North American champion. And I don't want to be harsh in that, because I appreciate him. I like his work. I like the matches he's had. But it just, something feels kind of off for me. But again, I want to touch on that more with Lucas on the build-up show. Let me know what you guys think, though. You know, have you enjoyed his title run? Where do you see him going next? Do you see him losing the title here? Again, I personally don't. I think they've got more to do in this title run, and Inamura isn't the guy to take it off of him. But look, I've been shocked by things in WWE before, so maybe, just maybe, the NXT Championship will be moving over to the waist of the man on the right side of your screen instead. Right. Apologies, guys, if you can hear some rattling in the background. I think there's some sort of washing machine on somewhere or something. It's rattling. So if you can hear that on the microphone, apologies. Let me know if you can, or if you can't. It'd be great to kind of get your feedback there, because I hope you aren't disturbed by that. Now, that brings us to the end of previewing NXT Great American Bash. But if you've got any more comments that you've kind of, you know, been stewing over or anything like that, let them fire away in the comment section and throughout the rest of the show as well. And we'll kind of pick up where we left off with those whenever we can. Then, of course, again, on Saturday, we'll have a double build-up show for both NXT Great American Bash and AEW All In Texas. And again, if you're watching the build-up show on Saturday, you may have already been seeing us in the replay section of that, talking all things NXT and AEW as well, because this will be replayed on that show as well. But we will be live as well. So if you're watching on Saturday, stay tuned, essentially. If you're watching on Friday, subscribe and check out the build-up show for what is tomorrow for you. Now, sticking with this timeline, let's move on to the other match the other show, I should be saying, is going to start at 8 p.m. on Saturday night. Before we do, let's go into some of these comments. We've got Aiden's hopping out to sleep. Oh no, Aiden. Oh, get some good rest and come back on Saturday for the build-up show. Hope to see you then. But thanks for popping in anyway, and thanks for your comments as always. Casper's still with us. Says Inamura is possible who could win, but Obafemi to keep it. Keep him strong. Yeah, I agree there. I think it will just continue to be an Obafemi kind of dominant title reign, essentially. Hank and Tank tag title should be fun. I've loved the Obafemi title run. Yeah, look, again, I like Obafemi. I like him being champion, but there's just something about the presentation. I don't know what it is. That doesn't feel like... It feels like they're coasting and they're waiting for something big to happen. You know, because otherwise... I don't know, there'd be more kind of marquee matches, if that makes sense. But anyway, again, maybe we're waiting for that. And that's why I don't believe he's losing the title here. Now, that rumbling stopped in the background, so that's great. So hopefully it wasn't an issue anyway. But even if it was, it's now over. Let's move in to the other show again, starting at 8 p.m. UK time, at least, of course. And that is AEW All In Texas. Now, the thing about AEW All In is that, as we mentioned before, it is kind of like the WrestleMania of AEW. Now, there was a time when it was hard to tell what the WrestleMania of AEW was because, well, first of all, they didn't have the All-In branding. That was tied up in copyright, so they had an all-out show. Then they did Double or Nothing. Well, they did that first, actually. All Out seemed like their answer to All In, and then they got All In back. So now I was a bit like, wait, which one's which? Well, it really feels like All In is the biggest show now. Of course, the last 2 years it's been London. Been privileged enough to say that I was there. Had a great time at both those shows. But the common theme with both those shows and this one coming up is that I haven't been keeping up with AEW as much as I wish I was. And that's because got a little bit sticky for a bit, you know? So it wasn't as fun. It was more stressful with AEW. But I got to say, both those shows were fantastic. And I really do think that this weekend's show could... I mean, it should be the best show of the weekend, really. There are some amazing matches on the card. They've been built actually really, really well this time around. All the problems that seem to plague AEW in the past few years seem to have kind of whittled away, and they seem to be in a good position now. Now, don't get me wrong, a few years ago, for me, they were my number one. I was really enjoying watching them because WWE weren't really doing too much. Past few years, however, the tides have turned, and it's completely opposite. But I do feel like there are certain things that WWE are frustrating fans with, and there's an opportunity for AEW to kind of, you know, steal a few kind of viewers their way. And this weekend's going to be a big one for them, of course. They have been counter-programmed by WWE to the kind of nth degree. You've got, again, NXT going head-to-head exactly at its start time, and then as it either would have just finished or maybe is wrapping up, depending on how long the show is, because AEW tend to have long pay-per-views. If that's one kind of complaint I can still give, it's that. Saturday night's main event is about to start, and in theory, try to steal all those headlines as well in the news cycle. And then the next day, they're going to have Evolution. So they've got a lot to compete with AEW this weekend. But again, I'm confident that they will pull it out the bag because it looks like it's an incredible card. Now, it's going to be interesting for me. As I say, the last 2 years, I've been at All In because it was at Wembley Stadium. This year, if it wasn't for Coldplay, which is a weird thing to say on the wrestling channel, they'd be there again. But instead, of course, they're coming back for Forbidden Door with New Japan in August instead, and plan apparently to go back to London next year. But this time, it is in Texas. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of presentation and how it looks as far as the stadium goes. Much smaller stadium than Wembley, of course. I think they believe to get about 20,000, which is their highest gate in North America, which is incredible. Nothing to be sniffed at. A non-WWE show pulling in those kind of numbers is fantastic, especially when WWE are going through arguably one of their boom periods once again as well. So top marks for AEW, and I think we'll get top marks coming out of the show as well. Really looking forward to this one, and I want to know in the comments, guys, are you looking forward to AEW All In, and what's your relationship with AEW? You know, have you been like me, gone up and down? Are you excited for it? Casper says, what channel is it on? AEW All In. But as I said, I'm not an AEW guy. I like it at the time, but I'm more invested in NXT and Saturday night's main event. I fully appreciate that, Casper. And again, we'll touch on Saturday night's main event and Evolution later on in the stream as well. But AEW will be on in the UK. I believe it's on Amazon Prime, but not where it comes free, unfortunately. I think you have to purchase it. But there are a few different ways. I believe pay-per-views kind of things online we can get globally, of course, but a few different options, I believe, in the UK as well. But this is the card, so hopefully, Casper, this will kind of get you in the mood for All In, or even if you don't order the PLE, the pay-per-view as they still call it, of course, maybe you'll catch the highlights on YouTube or something like that. But let's get into some of the matches that we're going to see. First of all, we are going to see some 0-hour matches, of course, what they refer to as their pre-show. As you can see there, the Outrunners versus FTR. I'm going to be kind of quick with this one because it's not part of the official card, and I think we're touching it more on the build-up show simply because it will be live. These matches will be happening while we're live on the build-up show as well. So 0 hour, again, FTR versus the Outrunners, a match that a lot of people want to see for a while. If I'm honest, I'm going to be quick about it. I'm going to say the Outrunners are going to win because they're the newer team, and I think FTR don't really need it. Let's move on to the next one. Now, this is another one I'm going to be quick with. You've got Big Boom, AJ, and the conglomeration of Hologram, Kyle O'Reilly, and Tomohiro Ishii. With Big Justice and the Rizzler, of course, going up against Don Callis' family. And this one, I think it's going to be the baby faces, essentially. You got the kind of viral sensations there of Big Boom and the Rizzler and things like that. So, yeah, for me, that's going to be what happens. And I think that kind of makes sense. And I like that I've used these guys, if I'm honest. WWE have kind of been up and down with the way they use their celebrities. So, I think it's been all right, to be honest. So anyway, that's what I think is going to happen here. The babyface is going to win. Again, we'll touch on that in more detail on the build-up show because we're going to be live when those matches are actually taking place. But let's get into the main card itself. And arguably one of the most exciting matches of the weekend. One of the most anticipated matches on this card and in wrestling over the past few years because it is, of course, the rematch between Okada and Omega. Now, if you're unfamiliar, these guys have had quite the storied history, of course, dating back to their time in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, I didn't see all of those matches fully. I watched the highlights, I think, for most, if not all of them, and only maybe watched one or two. I mean, they're long old matches, but they are absolutely fantastic. If memory serves me correct, Okada won the first. The second was a draw. I think it was a time limit thing. The third, I believe, was the 2 out of 3 falls match where Omega won. And then I think, or maybe it's just a normal one. Then I think Omega won again. So I think Omega is 2-1 basically, and one's a draw. So for that reason, I actually think they're going to weigh it back up here. And they're probably going to run this back once more in the future. And I think Okada's going to win this. He's going to unify these titles, of course, the Continental Championship and the International Championship to make some sort of Intercontinental Championship, maybe? No, the Unified Championship. What a stupid name. I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe Intercontinental Championship is one they couldn't really touch. But, man, again, I don't want to be negative, but this kind of sums up some of the AEW for me in one go. One of the most exciting prospects for matches, Okada Omega, fantastic. And then silly, weird booking where you've got two titles that are still quite new, one of which has changed name 3 times. The other one has only had, I think, 2 reigns. And now you're going to combine them and you're going to give them a completely different name and the most generic name of all. And I think they're not even acting like it's a unification, even though they're calling it that. I think they're acting like it's like, you know, like in boxing where it is unification, but they act like the lineage continues. That's kind of, I think, what they're trying to do, like where you technically hold both. No, just stop it. Make it less messy. WWE are messy themselves with titles, don't get me wrong. But this stuff, one good thing about AEW is their titles look beautiful, but they got crappy names, and weird lineages and stuff like that. And for a company that's young and allows kind of other titles to be used on their shows, like their own, technically as well, Ring of Honor, but also things like where Mercedes Moné have got 1,700 belts at the moment, and you know they work with other companies. This is just too confusing. They need to kind of stop doing this. Now, maybe this is the first step in the right direction, but the naming is surely that name will change in the future. Anyway, let's get back to the positive stuff again. Omega versus Okada, for me, probably going to be the match of the weekend because it's been like pretty much match of the year nearly every single time it's happened so far. So, by those standards, match of the weekend should be hard to kind of do. But then again, they've got a big card to compete with on their own show. But also, again, 3 other shows this weekend, 4 if you count Ring of Honor, where they could potentially be kind of outrun, essentially. But for me, this is going to be one of the best matches of the weekend. Really, really looking forward to this match. I can't state that enough, even if it's messy with the titles. For me, this is going to be great. Winner takes all, which will, nice little gimmick behind it. Don't get me wrong, but the whole name, anyway, lineage, I've said my piece. But I'm looking forward to the match itself. Again, I think Okada's going to win. I just got a feeling that they are going to want to make him look good on US soil. Yes, a lot of the fans that watch any AEW are familiar with New Japan anyway, and his history, but there are going to be some that aren't as familiar still. There are still international fans and, of course, plenty of US fans that maybe aren't as familiar with Okada other than what he's done in AEW. So I think for that reason, they need to make him look strong here. And I think Kenny would allow that because, again, I mean, I'm talking about Kenny the man, not Kenny the character. They clearly have a good relationship. They clearly enjoy working together. So this gives an opportunity to have another one in the future because it's 2-2 and a draw, and then there's one more to settle the score, if I've calculated it correctly at least. So yeah, for me, Okada, and I just feel like Kenny would probably again want Okada to look strong. You got to remember, Kenny's got a big kind of part in this company in the first place. He's not just an active wrestler; he's got interest in it elsewhere. So surely he'd want to kind of protect someone like Okada, and make him kind of a big star in America as much as he was in Japan. So for me, looking forward to it. Cannot stress that enough. Winner takes all, and I think that man will be Kazuchika Okada. Let's move in to the next one, though. We've got a women's casino battle royal. It's not a battle royal, is it? It's the gauntlet match this time round. It's the battle royals with Double or Nothing, but it's the gauntlet match for the women's. But also there is the men's casino gauntlet match to talk about as well. So we'll kind of throw them together, actually. Now, this is, again, 2 matches that I always really enjoy AEW do because there's usually surprises and stuff like that. It's a good opportunity. Now, there are a lot of rumors flying around about AEW this weekend. And some of the names I think could be either showing up here in the men's especially or in the main event, which I assume is going to be the AEW World Championship match. But let's touch on some of those. But before we do that, let's touch on the people that we do know are involved, or at least involved at the early stages. You've got the number 1 spot, as you can see, Mark Briscoe. The number 2 spot is MJF. There was a very, very kind of promo on AEW Dynamite from MJF. Of course, I'm sure got approval from Mark in real life, but it was a nice thing what he said about Jay Briscoe, and then a really horrible thing, which I'm always kind of in 2 minds about cashing in on that sort of stuff. But hey, if it's got the blessing of the family, then it is what it is. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, essentially, MJF said that if Jay was here, he'd say he wish it was Mark that was in the accident. And it's just, I don't even want to talk about it because horrible thing. Had the privilege of interviewing both Jay and Mark a few years ago at Madison Square Garden, and they were both beautifully nice to myself and Dan from Rebellious Noise. So if you haven't already, check out that interview on the main Rebellious Noise channel. It's not on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. It was from before we separated all the channels, essentially. But big fan of them boys, and big fan of what Mark's been doing solo since, essentially kind of picking up those pieces and moving on with his career. And I think this might be a big night for him, even if he doesn't win. I think he's going to feature quite heavily in this. Of course, you got him in again, MJF number 2 in a heated rivalry. I think they might even take each other out and kind of that be the kind of mistake. Or maybe Mystico, of course, has been linked up with MJF quite a bit recently as well. MJF, of course, someone that was in a massive spot on the first All In London, at least, with Adam Cole, the opener in the part of the 0 hour, and then a huge main event as well of an incredible story they were telling at the time, which sadly got derailed due to injuries. But MJF is he's always performing well, let's put it that way. Completely different spot for him here, but I think he's going to make it his own, and it'd be interesting to see how it goes. Again, is he going to be distracted by his kind of feud now with Briscoe, or is he going to be distracted by Mystico, or is he going to go all the way and win it? I'm not sure. Let's talk about the openers in the women's casino gauntlet match as well. You've got Chris Statlander and you've got Megan Bayne as well. Again, whether or not these two go the distance, I'm not quite sure. Let me know in the comments, guys, who you think is going to be walking out of those matches as the winner. Let's talk a little bit about the surprises, though. Here, especially in the men's, I think there's quite a few names floating around. You've got people like Darby Allin potentially coming back. Chris Jericho could come back here as well. Maybe Adam Copeland, or Cope as he's known these days. And then on the women's side, I think there's actually a few surprises that could go with there as well. I mean, there's been a few releases in WWE recently. I just saw a post from Isla Dawn saying she's open for booking, so maybe she'll be booked here. You've got Shotzi, of course, who's openly said recently that she'd like to work in AEW. So there are a few options for surprises, even if people don't get long-term contracts. Braun Strowman, I think, is another big one as well, potentially showing up in AEW, of course, just before he signed back with WWE. He was at ROH's last show before they became part of AEW, so that was an interesting kind of cameo there. So who knows, will he make it his way back here into that kind of sphere by showing up in the Casino Gauntlet match? What match are you looking forward to, guys? I mean, I think this is always a fun one, as I say, because there's just so much chaos surrounding it as far as both the men's and the women's gauntlet matches. But let me know in the comments what you're looking forward to and who you think, again, is coming out on top in those matches. Keep your comments coming as well, guys. Want to know what show you're looking forward to the most this weekend? There's so much to discuss. Of course, at the moment, we're talking about AEW All In Texas, but we will be bringing it back to WWE content very, very soon as we touch on Saturday night's main event and Evolution. But for now, sticking with All In, we've got Adam Cole, baby, defending his TNT Championship. I nearly said North American Championship there. At All In Texas against Kyle Fletcher. Now, I think this is an interesting one because Adam Cole, like, he's a champion, but like he's not where I think we thought he'd be in AEW. I mentioned that amazing feud he had with MJF that got sadly derailed. And speaking of which, there's been so many injuries around kind of things like the Undisputed Era being back together and stuff like that, which is kind of what I wanted to see for the most part for Adam Cole in AEW. And now I just don't really know where he goes next. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he showed back up in WWE at some point, but I'd love it to be with Undisputed Era. I was going to do the whole, was it that way? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Shock the system and all that. But look, at the moment, we're talking about him in NXT. That was a little bit of a slip, wasn't it? Him in AEW. And I got to be honest, I was over the moon when he showed up. Remember that night he showed up, and Daniel Bryan as well. Ruby Soho even came back on that, came to AEW in that show as well. Good times for AEW, man. Good times. But yeah, it doesn't really seem to be working out for Adam Cole at the moment. So what do you think? Do you think he's kind of getting towards the kind of big part of his AEW career and maybe moving on to different things elsewhere? Or, would he be losing this to move on to a bigger position in AEW itself? Or does he continue, as AEW TNT champion? For me, I think Kyle Fletcher's going to win this one. I'll be honest, just simply younger guy, a lot of potential and stuff like that, being pushed quite well lately. I just think it's a big moment. It's a crowning moment potentially here for a guy like that. So I think he will come away with a title. Quick comment here as well from Casper. Says a little bit off topic, but what are your thoughts on the passing of Diogo Jota? Very, very sad, crying for 3 days over him. Yeah, it was horrible, wasn't it? I mean, it is off topic, don't get me wrong. We'll touch on some more wrestling in a little bit. We do cover football every now and then, the Rebellious Noise football channel. Of course, if you haven't subscribed, go over there and check it out. Be a horrible, horrible passing. Liverpool player, of course. I just saw today they've officially retired his number 20, which is a lovely gesture. But yeah, really, really sad. And I was the same. I was quite emotional for a while, just thinking about a man who had one of the best years of his life. Really won the Premier League with Liverpool a little while later, Nations League with Portugal, got married, and then sadly died in a tragic accident with his younger brother. So horrible. Yeah, and again, thoughts and prayers really out to the loved ones of Diogo Jota. Let's bring it back to some pro wrestling though, and but thanks for the comment though, Casper. Of course, I know these streams we do go all of, especially on the build-up shows, guys. If you haven't joined us on the build-up show, of course, tonight it's just me and you guys in the comments, of course. But on the build-up show, myself and other members of the Rebellious Noise crew, and then our friends from the wrestling media world, and it gets a bit wild. We talk last-minute rumors, things kind of go all over the place, really. We play games. We, again, there are things in kind of the wrestling world, as you know, people spotted at airports and, thunderstorms and nearly knocking out WrestleMania. Do you remember that one? They're always quite fun. And again, we're going to have our build-up show for both NXT Great American Bash and All In Texas live on this very channel on Saturday night, because both shows again start at the same time. Later on that night, we're going to have a build-up show for Saturday night's main event. Of course, you've got Gunther there defending up against Goldberg in what looks to be Goldberg's final ever match. And then we'll also have a build-up show for Sunday night's action when the women of WWE take over your screens and bring you Evolution 2, which I'm very much looking forward to as well. And again, we'll touch on those cards in more detail throughout this show. But yeah, we're going to be hitting you with build-up shows over this weekend. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. Let's take it back to AEW All In, though. And kind of just a little recap there. I do think Kyle Fletcher is going to win the TNT Championship. Now, talking about title matches that are kind of potentially going to be big kind of newsworthy matches, this one here is arguably one of the biggest of the weekend. As I say, there is a lot of opportunity here for people to steal headlines, and I do think these two are prone to do it. I mean, especially Toni Storm in recent months. She's been on fire. We mentioned her storyline with Mariah May earlier on. Still doing incredible stuff, even though Mariah's now left. Now getting to this kind of, a lot of people are looking at this as like a generational match. Two women at the top of their game. Mercedes Moné, no kind of, small fry herself. She's been, decorated champion for years, especially at the moment. Again, got about 17,000 belts around her waist. But will she be picking up what she and AEW will be positioning as the most important one? Of course, the AEW Women's Championship on the line as Toni Storm looks to defend against Mercedes Moné. Now, really interested because I was watching Evolution from 2018 this week, and I'll touch on this a little bit more when we talk about Evolution later on. But Sasha, of course, at the time was a big star in WWE and was, one of the main attractions in that women's division, was becoming, future Hall of Famer at the time. And I still think she is on course for doing that, even though she's not in that company anymore. And Toni Storm won the Mae Young Classic. She'd got to the semi-final the year before, and she faced off against Io Shirai, as she was known at the time. And then you look to, what that show was supposed to represent. You look years later, and again, I'll touch on this more when we talk about Evolution. They did a good job because so many of the women on that card have ended up being in incredible positions ever since. And not all of those in WWE. There are a few examples, but two of the biggest at the moment, of course, would be Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné. Now, this is a match that, again, I'm really looking forward to. I'm a huge fan of Timeless Toni Storm, and I've always been a big fan of Mercedes Moné as well. I haven't really kept up too much with what AEW's been doing, let alone what people on their roster have been doing overall. But if there's anyone I've been keeping an eye on, it's been Toni Storm. Now, again, I've always had huge respect for Mercedes Moné, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they pull off here, because I think they know that this is one of those potential once-in-a-generation type matches where people remember this going forward as kind of two icons of their day, which is a big thing to say in a non-WWE card, by the way. Again, both of these women done well in WWE. Sasha, of course, even more so because she has such a kind of long spell there and won many championships. But Toni has had such an incredible run these past few years in AEW. And for me, been the most entertaining thing about AEW. Again, when I've kind of dipped out of AEW and not been that interested, the thing that's pulled me back in quite often is kind of seeing people online talking about Toni Storm and what promo she did the other day and this and that. So really enjoyed her character work and stuff in the ring. She's always been great. So this is, again, one of those matches that I think potentially kind of steal the show and steal the weekend's headlines as well. Let's get to predicting it, though. Who do we think is going to win, guys? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to go with a win for Mercedes Moné. I think she's going to crown herself the ultimate prize, essentially, after having all these titles, as I say. Quite a visual, wasn't it, on Dynamite where they're that face to face, and all Mercedes belts on the ropes. I think Tony's going to sadly be giving this one up, but I think it'd be fine. Like, you could argue it's overbooked, right? But we've seen this in the past. There's a famous picture of Ultimo Dragon, for example, with about 1 million belts as well. I think that was 19 or something. But still, this is a thing that people have done in the past. I know some people are going to look at it as like, especially through modern wrestling fans' lens of like, it's so common for online fans to say people are overbooked and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, it does happen. But I think this has been a story to tell for Mercedes Moné, and the title she's picked up from other companies. It makes those look good. There's danger in it. There is. Don't get me wrong, but surely you're going to give her again what is positioned to be the biggest prize of them all on this show. So for me, I think Mercedes Moné is going to walk out with yet another championship around her waist, and again be the biggest prize of them all. Casper says a mountain of snacks for tomorrow. Yes, Casper. Again, another thing on our build-up show that we like to get into, by the way, guys. So get ready for it. Is snack talk. We want to know what you're eating throughout the PLEs. And again, there's so many shows going on tomorrow. I think people are going to be eating loads of food. And over the weekend, but 3 in one night alone. Casper says, it's good you're talking about matches in AEW, but I won't be watching the show. I keep saying to my brother, I do love WWE more, but if I get the chance, I'll check out a few matches, but I do love Tony Storm. Casper also says, I love Tony Storm's work in WWE. Yeah, I get what you mean, Casper. Again, I'm someone that's hopped in and out of kind of watching AEW myself. If there's any time to try and get back into it, I think it's now. The biggest show of the year. I think if anyone's a wrestling fan, when you meet casual wrestling fans who, are used to like it, the time to get them back into it is usually the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania, and the big ones, maybe SummerSlam as well. So if you're intrigued by what you hear today, and all the kind of murmurs online about some of the big matches on this card, then hey, this is the time to check it out. If you're not going to order the pay-per-view, then maybe at least check out the highlights, because again, I do think it's going to be a great show. Once we're wrapped up with AEW, guys, we are going to pick up on Saturday night's main event. But sticking with AEW for a little bit longer, we've got the AEW World Tag Team Championships on the line in a 3-way match. This is an interesting one. I think the biggest kind of story here is everything around the Hurt Syndicate. I think they've been fantastic in AEW so far, just like they were in WWE. Of course, the former Hurt Business, but we've got Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, who, by the way, Shelton alone, I'm just so glad is getting these flowers and getting these great opportunities. Don't get me wrong, in his later run WWE, he had some good stuff in the Hurt Business, namely. When they had that 20th anniversary of Shelton, it was lovely to see people give him kind of celebration and appreciation, I should say, there. But he's an active, important part of AEW at the moment. That's what I'm liking to see. He's still got plenty to give, and a veteran, but still, again, kind of performing at the highest level to this day, which is incredible. But he will be defending his tag team titles alongside his Hurt Syndicate buddy Bobby Lashley against Jet Speed, the team of Speedball Mike Bailey, and of course Kevin Knight, and then the Patriarchy, of course Christian Cage and Nick Wayne. I think this is an opportunity for kind of some shenanigans and kind of silliness, but also an enjoyable match. I think Bobby is a serious character, but can play into that kind of comedy side as well, especially when he's got people around him like MVP and Shelton Benjamin. Of course, MJF has been linked with the Hurt Syndicate as well. So they've got that in them as well. So I think they're going to keep the titles, because I think they should keep the titles, because they're a team, they're a stable that makes more sense when they hold gold. Their character fits that, and I think it makes them more credible. Not saying they're credible without it. They've got incredible, illustrious careers behind them, but it's the same as when they were in WWE as the Hurt Business. I liked when they held the gold. They're a great, and the Judgment, they're the same. Some stables just need to have long spells with gold to make their stables make sense, right? And I think this is one of them as well. The whole idea, the presentation of these guys is that they are smart businessmen. They are working together for a greater cause, which is to basically hold gold together. And that's what they're doing, and that's what I think they're going to continue to do. Hopefully it'll be a good match. Let me know if you're looking forward to it. Let me know if you think any differently, or if you agree, and what you thought of the Hurt Syndicate and their time in WWE so far. Kieran says, is it someone's return today? Are we talking about AEW itself? I mean, there's a few possible returns, I think, over the weekend. As I say, with AEW, I think we could get Cope. I think we could get Jericho. I think we could get Darby Allin. I think we could get debuts of people like Shotzi. NXT, I don't really see any kind of returns or surprises there. Maybe a new signing. I mean, NXT or AEW really could be coming at us with a brand new signing because they tend to do that at big shows. I mean, it was more of a black and gold era thing for NXT where they'd kind of show off their new signee in the audience. They still do it from time to time, though. I think they did the same thing with Julia when they signed her. But then you've got AEW, who last year and the previous year showed off new acquisitions in the audience. Of course, last year it was Mercedes Moné watching from up high in Wembley Stadium as well. So, yeah, potentially. Casper says, I'm a big fan of the Hurt Syndicate, big fan of Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin WWE and MVP as a Hurt Business. Me too, mate. I really do think, and I've said it before, of that kind of pandemic era, they and Drew McIntyre are what carried that show. Bailey as well, I think, was up there. A few other kind of honorable mentions, but they were the big ones for me. I got to interview Bobby Lashley again a while back now when he was still in WWE, still a member of the Hurt Business, and we talked about exactly that. So if you haven't already, check it out on this very channel. We don't just hit you with big previews like this and build up shows and instant reaction reviews. We also get the opportunity to interview WWE superstars and current AEW stars, if you kind of count it like that, as well on this very channel. So again, if you haven't already, check out my interview with none other than Bobby Lashley. Kieran's clarifying his point. It says someone said ready. I can see your correction there, Jelly Roll. I know what you meant. Don't worry. We'll be returning tonight on SmackDown. I don't know if it's true. It is true. Again, at time of recording, it's Friday night. SmackDown hasn't happened yet. So if you're watching this as part of the replay on Saturday's build-up show, you would have seen it by now already. But yes, Jelly Roll. And that's something I think Lucas and I will probably dive into a little bit more over the coming weeks, especially as we get to SummerSlam, because it looks like, if rumors are to believe, they are about to position him in a prominent position heading into SummerSlam. Make of that what you will. Now, he looks like the Big Show, says Kieran. Oh, okay. Big Show. You never know, he could be showing up. I mean, he's still part of AEW, right? Like I say, moving back to the tag team title match, I think Hurt Syndicate are going to win this one. Now, what could be better than 2 championships within a team? 3 championships within a team. Of course, we're talking about the trios title now. We are talking about the Ops going up against the Death Riders. Now, the Ops of Shibata, Powerhouse, Hobbs, and Samoa Joe, of course, are the champions. They're facing off against Castagnoli and Willie Utah and Gabe Kidd, excuse me. Now, I enjoy trios matches. I think this is going to be chaotic. I don't think this is going to be order the shows, by the way. This is just the order I want, the matches, by the way. So the order I just kind of fancy talking about them. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I specifically remember going to last year's AEW All In, the one at Wembley, and Claudio fighting in the Royal Box very close to me, and that was quite an adrenaline rush. So I'd always appreciate that. Again, another man we've had the privilege of interviewing when he was known as Cesaro on the main Rebellious Noise channel as well. You would have seen him in our intro holding up a Rebellious Noise flyer. Lovely man, great worker. Looking forward to seeing what these guys can do. And again, another example of when you see a legend like Samoa Joe and think, yeah, man, you're still at it, you're still doing it, and not really taken away from anyone. I think lifting people up. Shibata and Powerhouse Hobbs being in there with him, I think, they make a good little team, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they've got to do, to kind of put away Kid Utah and Claudio Castagnoli as well. This one, you know what? It's tough because some of it depends on the main event. Like and I won't spoil that yet, but if the Death Riders take gold, then does that kind of like give them power if Moxley was to lose? And is that a good thing? Or do they want to, if they tell the story of Moxley losing the title, do they want, and dethroning Death Riders, do they not want to just take everything off of him? Or is it better to protect him by appearing like they've took loads off of him because they took the world title, but they've given him something so there's still kind of a credible threat and there's still something going on in the background? Maybe. So I'm going to go with, and the other option is Moxley keeps it, and just as I say with the Hurt Business back in the day in Judgment Day, stables where you just give them all the belts. That could be the case here as well. So for that reason, there's two kind of outcomes that might lead towards that as well. So therefore, I'm going to go with the bad guys winning this one. Now, let's move on to the next match. We're starting to get to the heavy hitters now. As if we haven't already, we've talked about some incredible matches on this card. And of course, we've already been touching on NXT Great American Bash. If you missed that part of the show, guys, feel free to rewind and check it out. We did talk about that in depth at the beginning of the stream. This is your Friday night's big preview covering all the big shows over this weekend. Loosely touching on maybe a bit of SmackDown, Raw, and ROH, but mainly focusing, of course, on NXT Great American Bash, AEW All In Texas, WWE Saturday Night's main event, and WWE Evolution. This is the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. My name is Scott, and we are hoping to set you off on a big weekend here in the world of wrestling. So if you haven't already, please subscribe, check out more of our content. Now, as I say, we're hitting you with the heavy hitters now. We've got the Young Bucks against Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. Some big, big names in the AEW scene there. Of course, the founders there in the Young Bucks. And then you got Swerve and Ospreay, who are kind of reluctantly working together and also reluctantly working alongside Hangman and Adam Page. And these matches kind of all start to link together, of course, because there is kind of interwoven stories between them all. On Dynamite, we had that fantastic moment where Strickland drops the what do you call it? Was it not a forklift? The digger, I guess, on the limo. Proper attitude era vibes there. Whose house? It was Swerve's house, and it was a great way to end Dynamite. But the thing is, Swerve wasn't too pleased with Ospreay's initial idea, which has now been locked in by the Young Bucks, and that is if they lose, the team of Ospreay and Swerve, then they will not be able to challenge for the world title for at least 1 year. But if the Young Bucks lose, they'll be stripped of their EVP titles. Now, what that would mean going forward, I don't know. We've had title struggles, speaking of an attitude era, so often in the WWE or the WWF, as it was known at the time, and they just went round and round in circles. There was a time where Stone Cold Steve Austin ran the WWF for a little while, so it doesn't really mean anything. Whether they go in storyline, they tend to kind of give it straight back or kind of just let it fade away. Maybe they'll turn babyface and they'll move away from this, and this is the way where they can kind of stop talking about because I mean, it's a heel thing to do. So if the babyface is acting like EVPs, and when everyone knew they were before, then that kind of brings in this kind of negative, oh, but you're booking yourself like this. But as a heel, you can get away with that. And you got to remember, this all came out after the CM Punk stuff. It was kind of like they took their opportunity to do what Vince McMahon did after, he looked bad for screwing Bret Hart. He turned it into a character. So it's kind of similar in that sense. So that would be an interesting way to get away from it. So maybe they are going to lose their EVP titles. I think that's probably more likely, if I'm honest. Look, there is an opportunity here to really mess things up by making Ospreay and Strickland not be able to go for the title for a whole year. Look, they got a stacked main event division in AEW and plenty of titles that you can focus on beyond that. But Ospreay's not really been at that top echelon in AEW just yet. He's been kind of floating around the other titles and other storylines and people in that main event scene, but not really had much of a kind of go at the title himself. So I feel like the next year is going to be vital. And of course, we mentioned it earlier on, Forbidden Door is coming here in just a few months' time. I say here as in here to the UK, of course, at London's O2 Arena. Quite a statement there, of course, usually a WWE house. But it'd be interesting to see what they do there. And Will Ospreay's on the poster. He's going to be a big part of it, just as he was with All In last year. And I've got a feeling he's going to be going into it looking for the AEW World Title. Now, you can't be doing that if you're banned. So I don't really think they're going to do it. Yes, he could have a big match regardless. Yes, there could be two big things going on at once. I do often say I prefer to say things like that where you don't tell the obvious story, like the Royal Rumble. I like him when it's one story and the person that would have gone for the title anyway just goes for the title, doesn't have to win the Rumble. Then you get two different things. Edge winning a few years ago frustrated me for that reason. Cody winning again this past year frustrated me for that reason. So yeah, you could have a big Ospreay match because he's in England and a world title match, or you could sync them together, which is what I think they're probably more likely to do. And then even still, are they really going to keep Swerve away from the title for a whole year? Is that good for him? When he's kind of a hot property, to basically say to him creatively, we're not going to put you in the main title picture for a year, but don't worry, we'll book you well. Like, he might not expect to be in as many title matches in certain periods, but the hope of might be in a big storyline. I mean, big storylines don't have to involve the world title, don't get me wrong, but it's usually the biggest, right? So I don't see them losing and losing out on that kind of opportunity for the next year. So for me, I think they're going to win. I think the Young Bucks are going to lose their EVP titles. Whatever that entails, I don't know. We're starting to get towards the very end of the All In predictions now. So if you're waiting for us to talk WWE once again, don't worry. That's coming up very, very soon. We're going to be talking about Saturday night's main event and WWE Evolution. Of course, I mentioned earlier on as well, this will be replayed on the build-up shows for these respective PLE / pay-per-views as well. But then after that, we'll be live with more members of the Rebellious Noise crew and hopefully some friends from the wrestling media world as well. So keep your comments coming in and join us on Saturday night and Sunday night where we'll have a build-up show for both NXT Great American Bash and AEW All In Texas, because they are again starting at the exact same time globally. Then we'll also have a build-up show for Saturday night's main event, which is going to be a few hours before that show starts. Again, that's all about getting you hyped up and in the mood to the big PLE. That's what we do here at Rebellious Noise. On the night of a PLE, we break down the last-minute rumors. We have friends for the rest of the media on, and we kind of just have fun with it, essentially getting us and you guys hyped up for the show. And then, of course, as I say, on Sunday night, we're going to have a build-up show as well for Evolution. As I say, some of our most fun streams are our build-up shows, so I hope you can join us for that. And again, I'll be starting out with clips from this show you're seeing here tonight on Friday night's big preview, but then we'll be live again with more members of the crew as well. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. And as I say, on this stream, we're going to be getting to more of those shows in a bit as well. But sticking with AEW All In as we get to what is surely going to be its main event, Jon Moxley, the champion, of course, of Death Riders, going up against Hangman Adam Page in a Texas death match. What is surely to be a crazy, crazy match. They are very kind of hardcore inclined, let's put it that way, especially Jon Moxley. If you've seen any of Moxley's work, especially outside WWE, you'll know that this man likes to bleed, and I think there's going to be a lot of blood in this match. If that's not for you, fair enough, but I think this is going to be one heck of a match. Looking forward to seeing what they do. What is the result going to be, though? And I can see the comments coming in, guys, about other shows. We're going to get back to those in just a bit. Sticking with AEW for just now as we wrap up on the AEW portion of the show, I think the winner will be Hangman Adam Page. Again, I think this is going to be a great match, a gruesome match. It's going to be, I reckon, times where I don't want to look at the screen. But ultimately, my eyes are going to be drawn back because they're going to be telling a big, big story. I remember when Hangman Adam Page won the AEW title for the first time. I think it was at Full Gear a few years ago. It was such a lovely moment. It was a crowning moment. Then since then, he's kind of stock kind of dipped. But that feud with Swerve was amazing. Does that play in here, though? Does Swerve and Ospreay lose their ability to challenge, and they, or one of them or both of them, take it out on Hangman and say, if you can't do it, if we can't do it, you can't do it? Or do they get their opportunity and still screw Hangman out of it? Or do they get their opportunity and help Hangman, because as Ospreay says, if they just want the title for Jon Moxley, and then one of them goes after Hangman afterwards? I mean, again, ready-made feud right there with Swerve Strickland, and of course, Will Ospreay versus Hangman Page would be quite a fun storyline to tell, to kind of tell as well. Or yeah, do they keep the title on Moxley? Is it with the Death Riders for much longer? Hangman Adam Page says he wants to take the title out of that briefcase, and I think he will. I think he's going to be walking out of AEW All In Texas from the Texas Death Match as the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. What a show. I'm really, really looking forward to this one, guys. Again, privileged enough to have been there the past 2 years. Gutted I'm not going to be there live this year. Texas is a little bit far away from me. I've been to a show in Texas, WrestleMania 25, but this time round, not going to make it to Texas for a big, big show. The WrestleMania of AEW, you could say, I could again. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it as much as I'd like being there, seeing it from afar, seeing the presentation, because always when you're there, you don't see the some of the stuff close up, some nuanced storytelling things, unless you watch the show back, the commentary and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing an all-in show for the first time since the first one, with the kind of presentation of a TV show. So yeah, I'm actually again looking forward to that for that reason. But yeah, a very, very cool card, very, very big night ahead of us when it comes to Saturday night, not only with NXT Great American Bash, but of course also with AEW All In. As I say, both those shows are going to be on at the exact same time. They are going head to head. I think NXT, as I say, is only going to be probably 2, maybe 3 hours at a push. All In, of course, usually a very, very long show, as all their PLEs, or pay-per-views, I should say, are. Hopefully wrapped up in time for the next show, though. And that, of course, is Saturday night's main event. Because it'd be nice to have a little break between them, right, guys? I mean, I say a break. I'm going to be live doing a build-up show. So I might even be on the build-up for Saturday night's main event, reacting to the end of All In. So we'll have to see how that goes. Not much time for me to grab a drink and go to the toilet. But hey, we'll have fun with it anyway. Let's move into Saturday night's main event. Now, this is a card that isn't the biggest at the moment. Now, this is being recorded, of course, just before SmackDown itself, so there is a chance that it adds a 5th match. If they haven't, then, well, it's going to be 4, and that's kind of what WWE do these days. We've talked about it quite often on this channel, especially myself and Lucas, and again, I know some of the people in the comments that we recognize have been in with us over the past few months where we've touched on these subjects as well, but WWE and Triple H, whoever it is, seem to really, really like the 5-match card, or 4. Evolution's very different. We'll touch on that later on. But there are only 4 matches on this card again. Potentially going to go to 5. We'll see where it goes. But as I record here on Friday night's big preview, there's only 4 matches to talk about. Is this a show that you're looking forward to? Because I am, because of just the hecticness of the weekend. But I've got to be honest, it's not the most exciting card. I think it'll be a good show. But just like NXT Great American Bash, I don't think they've put something together here that is kind of going to blow us away as far as the card goes. Now, could there be big moments on the card? Yeah, of course there could. I do think that there might actually be some big surprises, maybe returns, and some controversial winners as well. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But let me know, guys, are you looking forward to Saturday night's main event? And if so, what match are you most looking forward to on the card? Going to quickly get to some of these comments here as well, because I see them stacking up here. Casper says, I didn't enjoy Roxanne Perez versus Kairi Sane on Raw. Something I didn't feel right about the match, but looking forward to seeing Jelly Roll and seeing what SmackDown has to offer tonight. But Raw did pick up. Christopher says, I have Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez to retain on Sunday. We're going to get to Evolution later on, but thanks for your comment, Christopher. Always good to see you in the house. Also talks a little bit of AEW here. Says Hangman Adam Page wins. We'll see how that goes. And says Jimmy Uso versus Solo Sikoa for the US Championship. Of course, that is one of the matches we're going to see here at Saturday night's main event. So without further ado, let's get into the card, guys. As I say, Saturday night's main event is a short card, but as you can see on the screen there, much of it is built around what is potentially going to be the last ever match of Bill Goldberg. We'll get to that match in a little bit, but we will touch on LA Knight, versus Seth Rollins first of all. Now, I've got to be honest, this is a match that, while it doesn't have much going for it as far as kind of a title or a stipulation, I'm excited by it because they've been telling a good story. Now, LA Knight, for me, is an interesting one. I've always said, I feel like he needs to take that next step, whether it's win the Money in the Bank, win the world title, or win the Royal Rumble, or the King of the Ring. Look, he was getting close, pretty much all of those. And I thought, all right, maybe we're going to give him the King of the Ring. But then he gets caught up in this storyline here, and I thought, well, it has to be worth it. And I've got to be honest, as much as it kind of messed with his King of the Ring hopes, I think what they've done with him around that tournament and being taken out of it pretty much and distracted often because of these guys, it's led to this cool storyline with Seth Rollins. Now, Seth Rollins, of course, has the Money in the Bank briefcase. Will that come up later on? We'll have to wait and see. But I think this match is going to be an entertaining one. But again, just not much on the line. But it's been a good feud. LA Knight is massively over. Still, it's crazy. Like they don't pull the trigger as far as giving him something other than the US title, which was good. But I think he deserves more. And he still somehow is massively over. Like the other night when you saw him coming out on Raw in the audience, attacking, and he's very much like an Attitude Era wrestler. But then in the audience, like the fact that they were cheering like mad, and into these little. Everybody knew what to do. LA Knight, like even in a scenario like that, I think it just comes across so well. So I want bigger and better for LA Knight. So I'd like to see him pick up the victory here. And I actually think he might, because I don't think there's much need in Seth Rollins doing it. I think it will look good. Yes, you could say, look, Seth's got the stable, so the stable will just attack LA Knight, and that's a get out of jail free card for LA Knight. It doesn't have to look strong. WWE can kind of get away with that booking, but I just think it would just be better for LA Knight to win. It doesn't hurt Seth, and then they can attack him after it. Maybe someone else can help level the score. Maybe there'll be a return. Maybe because Seth's frustrated, they bring in a new member and they attack LA Knight afterwards. Maybe that's the way they go about it. LA Knight picks up the victory, but Seth's the last man laughing, essentially, with his cackle. Let me know what you think, guys. Do you think this is going to be a fun match? And do you think it's going to be anything that leads to anything important? Of course, the big thing around at the moment in the future is SummerSlam. It's not that long away now. 2-night SummerSlam as well. So you got to think LA Knight's got to have a kind of prominent feature on that weekend as well. Well, I hope he does at least. Christopher says LA Knight wins. Yeah, hopefully that is the case. Again, big fan of Seth as well. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I mean, you won the Money in the Bank. What more do you need at the moment, other than the title, of course, which is going to try and get? Casper says Saturday night's main event: Gunther versus Goldberg, Randy Orton versus Drew, Seth Rollins versus LA Knight, but Seth Rollins to win in this one. A good feud and good storytelling. And I agree with you there, Casper. I've enjoyed what they've done so far, even if I wasn't the biggest fan of Seth Rollins winning the Money in the Bank, because I felt like, well, we've told that story already. But they are, they're telling a little bit of a different one. He's got a stable now. Right, let's see what the next match to talk about is. Of course, we touched on LA Knight versus Seth freaking Rollins. Let's talk about something that does have a title on the line, and that is the US Championship, of course, mentioned in the comments just a moment ago by Christopher and by Casper. We've got Jimmy Uso going up against his little brother Solo for the US gold. Now, I think this is going to be short and sweet, maybe even a short and sweet match, and that Solo Sikoa is going to keep the title, because if anyone's going to take it off him, it's probably more likely to be the man he took it from, and that is, of course, his cousin Jacob Fatu. Now, look, don't get me wrong, I've enjoyed Big Jim, and it'd be nice for Big Jim to get some big gold around his waist, but it would be hot potato in the title, and I don't really agree with that. Taking it off of Jacob was, I don't want to say risky, but like a bold move, because they're pushing him so much. But I think it's been great for Solo. I think it's done wonders. And he's rebuilding this new little stable, which isn't really the Bloodline anymore. I don't think you're even calling it that. But whatever it is, I enjoy it, and I want to see more of it. I want to see returns as well. Tama Tonga coming back, that would be quite good to see eventually. And he's got Tala Tonga, he's got Tonga Loa now, he's got the former Jeff Cobb, Jacy Mateo. So I'm liking what they're doing, and Solo's character's completely changed. Like, he's just funny, and I really like that. So just very entertaining, essentially. So I'm looking forward to this match for that reason. And I like Big Jim, and it'd be a nice little kind of moment for the two of them on a PLE going head-to-head for a title anyway. But for me, Solo Sikoa should win, and Solo Sikoa, in my opinion, will win here as well. So Saturday night's main event, no title change for me on this one. Let me know what you think, guys, down in the comments below. Do you think the title will be changing hands? If not, who do you think dethrones Solo Sikoa? I mean, SummerSlam, as I say, is coming up. Maybe that's where it happens. Maybe it will be Jacob Fatu getting it back. Maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't usually say this, but there's loads of talk about Roman Reigns coming back soon. And is soon Saturday night's main event? Maybe. Where does he fit in? Is it to beat up Seth? I mean, I think that is kind of likely. If LA Knight starts getting jumped and he needs help, then a big babyface coming out to help him, Roman Reigns, because of what happened at WrestleMania, and Seth basically helped getting Paul Heyman. They've dealt with CM Punk. CM Punk's had that feud with them over that a little bit, so it's time for Roman to do the same. Or could it be here? Former Bloodline. He's coming back apparently as the OTC one, which whatever. Surely that's just to keep doing the one. I don't know, because didn't one mean one tribal truth as well? One tribal chief, I should say. But they also said one true chief and one only chief, whatever. They didn't really clarify, but one of the potential things was one anyway. But point is, will he fit in here? Well, are they going to do more Bloodline storylines? I mean, they can. I think they will again at some point. Will they do it here, and will it be for Roman going after the US gold? I don't think so, but hey, it'd be big for the US gold. Christopher Leclerc says, tonight is ROH Supercard of Honor. Yeah, you are right, mate. As I say, we are recording this on Friday night. We are yet to see SmackDown and Ring of Honor. Hopefully 2 good shows there on what is already a stacked weekend. Of course, we're mainly focusing on NXT Great American Bash. If you missed us talking about that, we'll answer any comments on it. Don't get me wrong, but we've already touched on those matches in detail. So go back and check that out. And of course, as I say, we'll have our build-up show on Saturday night. If you're watching on Saturday night, what you're seeing here right now, and you're watching the replay of the stream, stay tuned because we will be live again. But if you're with me on Friday night, this is really confusing, isn't it? Then tune in live on Saturday as well for the build-up show. Casper says, I didn't see this match. I forgot about this one. It was only announced recently, actually. But yeah, Solo Sikoa versus Jimmy. But Talatonga has arrived now. Yeah, will Talatonga be the difference maker in this match? Christopher Leclerc thinks it will be a win for Solo. And Casper also says Solo to retain in this against his little brother, Jimmy. It's his big brother, but I get where you're coming from there, Casper. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this match. Again, a nice opportunity for the brothers. And always good to see Big Jim get some airtime as well. Moving on from the Bloodline match, let's move into Randy Orton versus Big Drew McIntyre. Now, this is going to be a fun one because I think they're guys that work well together. They've had storylines that have kind of weaved in and out, essentially. Good to see Drew back. I'm a huge fan of Drew McIntyre's work and what he's been doing the past few years, especially. And of course, always great to see Randy Orton in these shows as well. Remember last Saturday night's main event where we saw him versus John Cena for the title? Didn't go well for him. Hopefully, he'll have a better night here. But then again, hopefully not, because I'm also, as I say, a big fan of Drew McIntyre. And I think if Drew's coming back from, a little bit of time away, he probably needs to look strong. So I think him winning is probably the best best way forward here, essentially. Speaking of Drew McIntyre, we have had the opportunity to chat to Drew McIntyre on this very channel. If you haven't already, go back and check it out. We talked about the story behind the match that nearly gave him his breakout moment. No spoilers, but go check it out on this very channel. He plays a big, mean, tough guy on TV, but it was actually very nice to us. But if you haven't already, subscribe and you'll find more content like that on this channel. Christopher thinks Randy Orton's going to win this one. I think Randy Orton could win it. I mean, lately he's not had much luck, right? As I say, he got screwed out of his match at Saturday night's main event. He didn't win recently against Cody as well in the King of the Ring. So maybe he doesn't, and that's what we're leading towards. Him finally turning heel again. I said it on the last streams we were doing about him facing Cody at the King of the Ring. I felt like him turning heel on Cody might happen, but wouldn't have been as good as it being a shock if he won in the same match as him. So maybe they've took their foot off the gas, so to speak, to do that in the future. Cody himself, potentially could be going away for a bit because, he's going to be filming a movie soon. So maybe we're going to see him kind of say goodbye for a bit after SummerSlam. We'll have to wait and see. But again, as we get closer to SummerSlam, we'll talk a little bit more about that in more detail, I'm sure. If you haven't already, subscribe. And I'm sure we'll do some build-up shows for that as well. Christopher says, if Randy Orton loses, he will turn heel. Yeah, see, I think it will happen. Maybe not on this show, but I think it will lead to that. Casper says Randy Orton has to win for me in this one, but a big fan of Drew McIntyre's work. I mean, if you look at it like that, Randy's not had many wins lately, so maybe, as you say, he has to win for that reason. You could also argue Drew coming back has to look strong as well. And out of the two of them, I think the other one, there's a better story to tell with one of these losing, and that's Randy Orton. That's him losing and just kind of getting a bit too annoyed by it, basically, and turning into big bad Randy Orton once again. Women's Evolution, I'm really looking forward to. So am I. Casper will be breaking down that card right after the Saturday night's main event. Once to stay tuned for that as well. But sticking with Saturday night's main event, let's take it back to the subjects at hand there. And again, we'll pick up where we left off with Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre. For me, as I say, I think it's going to be a victory for Drew McIntyre. Let's move into the next match. And this is our main event. Gunther defending his title against Goldberg. Now, this one is interesting. Where do we start? First of all, it's been sort of promoted like it's Goldberg's last match. I'm going to take it at face value, and I'm going to say it is Goldberg's last match, right? So I'm going to predict on those terms. But even that makes it difficult because usually the age-old thing, you go out on your back, you put the guy over, right? But, and this isn't the thing about Bill Goldberg, the man. This is about Bill Goldberg, the character, and WWE and WCW in the past who have booked him. Bill Goldberg don't lose a lot. So I think if there was a character that made sense going out on top because of the way he was booked in the past, not saying because of what it means for the other guys involved or the future of the business, but just because of the way his story had been up until that point, the rest of his career, is Bill Goldberg. And Goldberg winning what is now surely considered to actually be the lineage of the WCW title, because it's still the big gold, a similar design at least, when they brought back the World Heavyweight Championship, which was the same name for what they gave the big gold once they took the WCW title away from it on Raw in 2003, and then kind of brought it in and out and all that kind of stuff. They kind of tried to act like it wasn't the same, but I feel like it is. And the visual of Goldberg holding up the big gold once again in his final match, a title that, yes, it's not exactly the same design. Yes, it's not exactly the same title lineage almost, and it's not the same name, but we get it, right? It's the big gold and it is big Bill Goldberg. They kind of go together, right? There you go. I've sold it, right? Surely. Look, I'm not saying it's what I want to happen, but it's what I can see happening. It just makes sense. Sort of. The reason it doesn't make sense is because Gunther could benefit from this, right? And he's the world champion, right? So you got a problem if Goldberg wins and retires. Yeah, that's good for Goldberg. That ain't good for the belt. You could argue it is good for the belt because that name on that kind of new lineage is kind of good. It's a big name, but at the same time, if you're saying it's attached to the old lineage, it doesn't need it, right? So it's a tough one. So would Goldberg win and retire as champ, and then they have to do a tournament? Would Gunther then have to win the title back again, or would he not? Or would he just get given it back and be 3-time champion already? I mean, bearing in mind, he's only just got the title back as well, not that long ago. And, you know, he lost it in kind of controversial fashion, you know, tap into his own sleeper. It just was not really a good look, although I was happy for Jay Uso at the time, and I was happy for Gunther to get it back and happy for Jay's run and all that. I think for the most part, it's been a good story to tell. You can't deny it's been a little bit messy and a bit confusing, and it has to be worth the payoff. If the payoff is just to have Bill Goldberg retire with the title and give it back to someone, I don't think that's a good look, but I can kind of understand it at the same time. Now, don't get me wrong. I think there's going to be a lot of fans out there who don't want to see that because that's the way WWE booked him for quite some time. It was different in 2003 when he signed and joined WWE. He was kind of booked differently. His matches were different to how they were in WCW. But since he returned, 2017 or whatever it was, remember when he beat Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, just horrible stuff. Always in the title picture, not around as much as he should be. And this has come from, I actually like Goldberg, right? But this new generation, I don't think they get him as much. And he was over pushed, but that's part of his character, so you can kind of forgive it. And again, I want to find out what you guys think in the comments, but also on the build-up show for Saturday night's main event. I'm really looking forward to talking about this with hopefully some guests and talking about this maybe with Lucas as well, because I know he's got some interesting thoughts on Goldberg and the way he's positioned in WWE as well. So stay tuned for that sort of thing. But for me, I could kind of see it happening, but is kind of enough. I don't know. I mean, the other option is Gunther wins and Goldberg does the traditional thing and goes out looking up at the lights. I've got to be honest, I've not enjoyed seeing Goldberg limp, and I feel bad for him. I want him to have his moment. At least he deserves a big moment to retire on. I feel bad, and again, we'll touch on this, I'm sure, more over the weekend. That is kind of come at a time to counter-program another show, and therefore all of these shows seem to have suffered with ticket sales, and maybe will suffer with buy rates and things like that as well. But anyway, he deserves a big moment. Does he deserve to be champion when he retires? I don't know. But I like Gunther. I want Gunther to look strong. Now, the other option, we mentioned him earlier on, is Seth Rollins. Is that your get out of jail free card here? Do they make Goldberg win and Seth cashes in? and is the new champion, getting back the title that he, had for a long time, elevated himself when it was seen as a new title. Because I do feel like they might be doing that. And then they might be able to get back to CM Punk and him for the title. Maybe at SummerSlam. Maybe not. Maybe LA Knight. I don't know. But is that how they get out of this? Do they give it to LA Knight? And I say get out of it as if Gunther's a bad option. I honestly think Gunther has the title back because of the Goldberg match, which makes me think it was so that Goldberg can win the title. Because Gunther Goldberg could have happened without the title. They could have kept it on Jay, but they haven't. So that's why I'm leaning towards Gunther winning the title, losing the title, I should say, to Goldberg, and it being solved by Seth. Now, I say solved because that has the future thing. They don't have to do a tournament or anything like that. But does that give kind of us a new problem of hot potato in the title? Look, we did it with a cash in at WrestleMania. I thought it was really funny when Damian Priest come out and beat Drew. I thought it was well executed. Gets the numbers up on that new lineage as well. So, like, sometimes it works. Sometimes it's okay. But here, if the goal is to have the final moment of Bill Goldberg's career, him holding up the big gold once again, sort of, does that count when he's now lost it straight away and he's on his back anyway? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's going to happen? What do you think of my idea? Even if, I'm not even sure I want it to happen. I just think it might be what WWE do. They might give it to Goldberg, and then to get out of it, because they want to deal with it going forward, they might give it to Seth. So it feels like maybe the best of both worlds if they actually want to give it to Goldberg. And it seems like, judging by the past few years, they want to give everything they can to Goldberg. So we'll see. Christopher Leclerc thinks Goldberg will win, but thinks it will be by DQ. Completely different route there. So yeah, possibly is what we're going to see. Casper says, I'm looking forward to this one. Gunther versus Bill Goldberg. I was only saying Gunther to win, but Bill Goldberg's retirement match is intriguing. Good for Goldberg, but as you said, it's not good for the belt. Casper also says, I hope they pull the trigger. I want Goldberg to have his moment. I agree. Casper, what else have you said here? I agree as well. Not a fan of hot potato in the title. It's always a risk, isn't it? Look, whatever they do, it's gonna create stories, right? Even if Gunther retains, I think there'll be people going, oh, why? Even if Gunther retains, there'll be people saying, well, did this need to be for the title? Could that still not have been on Jay? Why couldn't they have just had the match without the title? Because that is the thing. It could have been Gunther kind of a kind of not a similar act, but just a big meaty man, as Big E would say. Gunther Goldberg makes sense. Did it need to be for a title? No. Come the end of Saturday night's main event, would it make more sense? Maybe. We'll have to see. But again, let me know in the comments what you think of the Saturday night's main event card. As I say, at time of recording, only 4 matches. Potentially could go up to 5. Who knows, even maybe 6. But at the time, there's only 4. Hope you've enjoyed my predictions there. This is Friday night's big preview, and a big preview it is indeed. Not just in name, but of course in the amount of shows we're breaking down here. Again, we have touched on NXT Great American Bash. We've touched on AEW All In Texas. We've also touched on WWE Saturday Night's main event. It's now time to talk about WWE Evolution. Now, this is a show that I think most people are the most upset about being clashing with such a kind of heavy weekend, because Evolution, man, like Evolution 1 was so monumental. I said it earlier on in the stream. I rewatched it this week, and it was so cool seeing where these people are now. How much of a great show that was in itself, but where these people are now and where they were in that show. Bianca Belair was in the crowd, not really involved. Rhea Ripley as well looked annoyed because she wasn't in the Mae Young Classic final, which I'm sure was just some character work from her. Toni Storm won that. She's now, of course, big match on the same weekend for the AEW World title against Mercedes Moné, of course, who was Sasha Banks featured on this as well. Charlotte and Becky had their last woman standing match. Nikki Bella, of course, is going to be appearing at Evolution, was facing off against Ronda Rousey, who I don't see showing up this time, but was a big story at the time. Just so much. Io Sky, as she was known back then, Io Shirai, of course, was featured heavily in this as well. She is now women's world champion on Raw. Of course, is going to have a match on this show as well. So the first one just like laid down the groundwork for the next few years, and it was really of its time. But still, I watched it back, and it was such a great show. And you look at some of those people, and you go, yeah, they've had a great career since, but like, what are they doing at the moment? As far as the build to this show, I think the card is great. It started to really come together in the past few days, but that's a bit late. There is talk about they have not sold tickets in the upper tier, and then I saw talk about them moving people back because they moved people down into the lower tier. They upgraded people. I saw people even then having their upgrade taken away, so maybe that's a good sign for the show because it's selling more tickets. Bad sign for them because they got their hopes up. They were moving somewhere closer. I do think it's going to be a great show, but I think on the same night, I think Beyonce's playing in the same town, or the same state at least. Or I think there's another big a big show going on as well. Of course, it is on the same weekend where people are going to have a lot of wrestling fatigue, having watched maybe Friday Night SmackDown, Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor, NXT Great American Bash, Saturday night's main event. What else is there? AEW All In Texas, of course. We've been previewing most of these shows as well. Yeah, it's just like, this is the one where it's like, yeah, but this is a special show. It shouldn't be just an afterthought and kind of trying to score points against another company. Like, I think it's out of WWE's cards that they're putting on this weekend, I think it's the best one and the show I'm most looking forward to. Because again, that comes from the first one. And that these women, we talked about throughout these kind of predictions, right? People trying to steal headlines, trying to bring kind of eyes their way. The women are really going to want to do that just because of the situation around the show itself and the first one and what the story was there. Yeah, the wrestling scene is different since then as far as women goes. It's been incredible, but it's still going to want to make a statement. And it's still going to make a statement on a weekend where I feel like they probably feel like they've been under kind of prepared. You know, it's not a show that's had a good build. But as I say, the card is looking good. So we will break it down in just a moment. Let's get to some of these comments before we do. Christopher Leclerc says on SmackDown, Kairi Sane versus Roxanne Perez, Alexa Bliss, and Sol Ruka. So a lot of women being used there as well. And as Casper says, it's nice to see all the women PLE. Really looking forward to the matches on this one. So am I, Casper. And as I say, without further ado, let's break it down. Let's talk about WWE Evolution 2025. The first match we're going to talk about is the Intercontinental Championship. Now, this is a great example again of how Evolution 1 was quite different to Evolution 2 in the sense that so much has changed. We've got, and I wasn't getting emotional there, by the way, guys. Saying that, I ain't afraid to admit, Evolution 1, and a lot of things around Evolution 1, when there was a lot of first-time moments for the women, I used to get very teary about these women's matches at moments. Hey, I might do it again. I saw the cold open, by the way. If you haven't seen it already, I think it's about 3 minutes long. WWE put it up on their YouTube page. And already I was like, man, I love this. I love women's wrestling. So they're making it up to us. I'm in a little bit, there, but a bit late in some ways. But looking forward to the show, as I say. Look, like I say, things have changed. Just looking at this graphic again, comparing it to Evolution 1, you've got Bayley, who was a very different character back then, but big part of WWE. You've got Becky Lynch, big part of WWE. She's becoming the man at the time. And then you've got Lyra Valkyria, brand new on the scene. And this whole storyline has been about pushing her and kind of focusing on her as the kind of future, right? Now, she's been Intercontinental Champion. Again, something that's completely different this time around. We have a new IC belt. We have the US title, which, by the way, I'm really disappointed isn't being defended on this show. Again, this is being recorded before SmackDown, so who knows? Maybe they add a Julia title defense on the card as well, but it's already a stacked card, way more than WWE usually do these days. But yeah, again, things have changed essentially. And this is a great example of that, as I say, not just with a title, not just with what are two legends now in the game, but also Lyra Valkyria, someone that I think is still finding her feet in some ways, still kind of hit and miss on some things, but improving more and more, had a good IC title run herself and a decent feud and really kind of starting to shine in this storyline now that there are 3 of them involved and everybody's got their own little story to tell. Now, who's going to win it? I mean, I think the answer I would have come up with before was to give it back to Lyra, because I think Lyra, lost it, but it was to make, in my opinion, the IC title looks strong and kind of put that on Becky's CV is good for her. But now I'm thinking it'd be good for Bayley. Like, Bayley lost out on WrestleMania. It'd be a good thing for her CV, right? Someone put up a video of her back in the NXT days. So earlier on, Bayley retweeted it and said about Evolution, how it means so much to her, essentially. So maybe we're getting a big moment here for Bayley. Maybe this is the payback for kind of taking one for the team essentially at WrestleMania and being, involved with that storyline where she was taken out by, who was it? Well, it was Becky Lynch. She got involved and won tag titles with Lyra, and they lost it. She turned on her, got a title. It's been a good story they've told. Bayley's back in it. I really hope that Bayley benefits from this story essentially. So I'm hoping Bayley wins it. But if this was a few months back before Bayley came back into the picture, I would have said it was all about Lyra getting back the gold. Because, yeah, you've made the star now and you've made the title. Put them back together. But I don't want to see that. I want Bayley to win. Prediction-wise, though, I'm going to go... I might even just go with Becky to keep it because we're going to SummerSlam. Becky's going to feature heavily there, right? Will she be challenging to get a title back? Will we see the same match again? Maybe. And if so, would they have took the title? And if so, that means there wouldn't be a title change there, surely. Unless it was a nice little reward for Bayley to have for, just over a month or so. And then Lyra gets it back on that big stage. That's kind of the best story to tell, right? Yeah, it's a bit of hot potato with a title in some ways, but maybe that's the best story to tell. So, you know what? I'm going to go with my heart on this one. I'm going to say Bayley's going to win it. And it's because they're going to get a rematch, triple threat, SummerSlam, and Lyra's going to win there. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going too much with the old ticker. Christopher Leclerc says, I'm torn on Bayley or Becky winning, so no chance for Lyra in Christopher's prediction. Casper says, I'm really looking forward to this one. Becky Lynch versus Lyra versus Bayley. Becky has to retain, I'm a massive fan of Becky Lynch. Of course you are, Casper. How can I forget? When Becky wasn't spoken about because she wasn't around, Casper made sure to bring her up on every single stream. So I appreciate that, mate. I know you're a big fan of Becky, as am I. I think she's been used perfectly since she's come back, by the way. Not shoved down our throats too much in the main title picture, but instead kind of making use of a kind of, a legacy essentially, and rubbing off on not only an up-and-coming wrestler from her own kind of hometown, but also on a title that needs a bit of a shine as well. Julia is in the Women's Battle Royal. We'll be getting to that later on, but good point, actually. I don't know why they don't just do a US title match. I'm leaning towards Bayley winning, says Christopher Leclerc, in this triple threat match, and also says Bayley versus Becky Lynch for the Intercontinental Championship at SummerSlam, completely taking Lyra out of the mix there. But again, look, when you talk about marquee matches, that makes sense. I can kind of see that. It's just, what does it mean for Lyra? What was it all for, really? Casper says, but Raw is much more better for me and enjoyable now. Becky is back in WWE. I never wanted to retire. I love her. Someday she's going to have to, Casper, but I'm with you, mate. Big fan of Becky, and always great to see her around, especially now that she's being used quite well, I think. Not shoved down people's throat in the wrong storylines, but again, used in the best kind of way. What do you guys think of the whole kind of Becky Lynch return, Bayley in this match, Lyra? Who's going to win it? Again, if you haven't already, drop your comments. Let us know down below. And would love to hear your thoughts. I've also had the privilege of interviewing Bayley again on this very channel. It was when she was in Damage Control. So if you haven't already, check that out. That was a fun one, if I do say so myself. And we've got plenty more where that came from as well. Also had great interviews with the likes, as I said earlier on, of Drew McIntyre. Great conversations in the past with Finn Balor. And also had good conversations, as I mentioned earlier on, with Bobby Lashley. And even, sadly, someone who's not going to be featured on this show, not in a wrestling capacity at least, but Liv Morgan, who I think has been on an incredible run lately, but sadly isn't featured here. Now, let's get back to the card itself. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe, check out more of our content. We will have a build-up show live for Evolution on Sunday night, where we have friends from the wrestling media world join us, more members of the Rebellious Noise crew, and break down the card and the last-minute rumors in more detail as well. This time around, though, great to have you joining me. This, of course, will be replayed on the early part of that, but then we'll be going live, breaking it down in more detail, as I say. But for now, let's get back into the Evolution card, and let's talk about the next match to predict. And we touched on it a little bit earlier on when we were talking about NXT's Great American Bash, and as much as I'm looking forward to this one, I kind of gave that a Great American Bashing, or a Great British Bash from me at least, because I just feel like it feels like a go-home match, the kind of thing you see on an episode of normal NXT to get you to the PLE, and I don't think that's good for an NXT PLE. Now, it depends what we see. By the time you watch this, you might be watching this on the early part of the build-up show on Sunday night's stream. So by then, we might know if Blake Monroe turned or anything like that. But as I call it at the moment, we don't actually know if that's going to happen. But as we talked about on that stream, if she hasn't at that point, she might turn here and cost Jordynne Grace in this match. I think Blake Monroe turning heel sometime, but let's stay away from her just for a little bit because it is kind of hard to predict. We've got Jacy Jayne, of course, the champion, going up against Jordynne Grace. Now, if there hasn't been a turn at this point, I do fear for Jordynne, but if there has, then it's out of the way. I think Jordynne's going to win. I think Jordynne makes sense as the champion. You could argue it's soon. You could argue as well that it's a long time coming. This is the thing about the TNA connection, right? She was in TNA when she first showed up, as was Joe Hendry, but he still is. The difference is she's now part of the WWE roster, as far as kind of clearly, at least. We don't know if there's something going on behind the scenes with TNA that, maybe means they all kind of technically are, but it's presented to us that she's a member of the NXT roster and not TNA, right? So since then, it's about time to give her that gold, I feel. So, for me, I think she I'm going to go Jordynne Grace. I'm going to go Jordynne Grace on this one. I think she will actually become NXT Women's Champion. Which is great, by the way. I think she'll be fast-tracked to the main roster in no time, but a little pit stop as NXT Champion will do them all no harm either. Christopher Leclerc also said, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Bayley, when they do retire, they'll be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Yep, I think a fourth name you can add to that list for sure is Mercedes Moné, as she's going by now. Of course, we've touched on her this weekend quite a bit with All In, but you've got to remember her time in WWE as Sasha Banks was such an incredible run as well. I think the four of them deserve to go in, and I think they definitely will. Casper says, I'm a big fan of Lyra too. Great storytelling in this one. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been a good... It's kind of perfect in some ways, for what you want to get out of those things, making Tile look good, making Lyra look good, and not making Becky get in the way too much, and hopefully giving Bayley something out of it soon. Bringing it back to the match we just spoke about, though, Jacy Jayne retains, says Christopher Leclerc, because I have Jordynne Grace winning at the Great American Bash. And then Casper also says Jordynne Grace needs to win the title. For me, Blake Monroe screws Jordynne Grace, and Jacy Jayne wins, though. So, yeah, Jacy Jayne coming out as champion, even though Casper thinks that Jordynne needs to win the title at some point soon. Maybe she goes into a storyline with Blake Monroe and then goes back to this title in the future. Let's bring it back to the Evolution card as a whole, though. The next match to talk about is this one here. Of course, the Fatal 4-Way Tag Team title match. You can see there on your screen, the graphic shows us it is the Judgment Day of Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez, the champions, of course, defending against Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, the kind of interesting team there. Sol Ruka and Zarya, and the Kabuki Warriors back together once again, Asuka and Kairi Sane. I'm really looking forward to this match, guys. I think it's a bit weird that they've kind of, in some ways, you could argue, shoehorned Charlotte and Alexa into this. I think they did the same thing at Evolution 1. I mentioned earlier on the differences between where we are in the wrestling world and where we were at the time. You look back at Evolution 1, I don't think Sasha being in the match she was in made the most sense, or Bayley, because they were both but it's just the way the stories had unfolded at the time. I think if you look back on it and you said, Sasha main evented, you'd be like, yeah, that would make sense. She was one of the biggest stars in WWE at the time, but she weren't in that kind of position. She was in I think it was a 6-woman tag. I think this is an example of that, where Charlotte was in a big position last time round. Alexa was also, I don't know if she was injured, but she was acting like as a manager. But anyway, point is, this time around, Alexa is actually wrestling, but Charlotte's in, I don't want to say a lesser position. I mean, lesser position. It's a title match, big match, enjoyable, still on the card. But last time it was a one-on-one versus Becky Lynch in the last woman standing match. That was historic, and not saying this won't be fun, won't be good, but it's a different position. But she's way further on in her career now. And the argument a lot of people make about Charlotte is the same one people made about Becky Lynch in the past, is that she's shoved down her throat, she wins too many things. Still a big fan of Charlotte, even though that both things can be true at the same time. The good thing now is they have stepped the foot off the gas to Charlotte, and she is doing other things. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm glad she's doing this. There's a little bit of storyline history between her and Alexa anyway. Strange I think most people would have expected Alexa to go straight into this Wyatt 6 storyline. She hasn't really. So maybe that will come back. Hopefully it will. I think it should. But at the moment, she's in a storyline with Charlotte. Now, is it because they're going to become tag team champions? Or is it just simply to get them on the card? I'm starting to think it's the latter. At first, I thought it was for that reason. But then, when I look back at that graphic, there's only one team, in my opinion, that makes sense to keep those titles. And I've kind of given it away there. Keep those titles. It's the Judgment Day. I'm not really a fan of someone getting injured and a new person taking their place. People that listen to me on the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel, the Rebellious Noise main channel, and back in the day on Talking Beans when we covered wrestling as well for that podcast, you might know I don't like the Freebird rule. I didn't like the New Day doing that. And this isn't the same. It's kind of similar. I've liked it in the past where they've kind of been like, okay, you have to at least win a match. You have to successfully defend the titles, and you're now the champ. I think they did it this time with this as well. And the last time, was it Liv and Raquel? There was some sort of scenario where recently they had a similar one as well, where someone got injured and it was the Naomi and Jade switch over. Essentially, we'll get to them later. So yeah, that's not as bad, but still, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But got to make the best of a bad situation. Liv is injured. Real shame. Again, it's a shame she's not on the card. Maybe she will feature. I saw a tweet earlier on where she was wishing them good luck, which is quite interesting. So I think that's what she was doing. Something along those lines, anyway. So will she appear? I don't know. I mean, they used the picture, of course. Everyone was like, she's not dead. Raquel was annoyed by that. I think this is basically where Roxanne wins her over, because I think that's the biggest story to tell. That eventually Liv will come back and Liv will kind of have been replaced, and Roxanne is on her side, just like what happened to Rhea Ripley is going to happen to Liv Morgan. And I think it's going to be a great story to tell. I'm really looking forward to it. It's not the one they would have told, obviously. It looked like Liv was going to do something with Nikki Bella, maybe be in a tag team match with Brie Bella, and it was I don't know, maybe it was a one-on-one. We couldn't quite tell, right, because she got injured, which again was a real shame. I do think she Liv's one of the best performers in WWE, regardless of women's roster or men's roster. So yeah, a real shame, bad timing for it. But I'm looking forward to coming back, essentially. And I do think the best story to tell is the Judgment Day keeping hold of their titles. Even seeing them on, again, I mentioned it throughout the stream, really, when you get stable, sometimes it just makes sense to see them capture pretty much all the gold. And seeing the Judgment Day with all the gold on their table on Monday Night Raw, I think was a really cool visual as well. Let's get to some more of these comments here, guys. Christopher says, Sol Ruka has a busy weekend. You're right, she really does. Busy weekend indeed. I don't think she's going to be coming out on top here, but I do think it's going to be a good showing for her. It's a good opportunity for a lot of these NXT girls to stand out. Christopher Leclerc says Judgment Day retains as well. Casper says would love to see Zaruka win the tag team titles. Zarya needs a title belt, in my opinion. Roxanne Perez has 20 losses in 2025, says Christopher Leclerc. That's incredible. I hope she's not going to win this, lose this one. And Casper says, oh no, I didn't realize for Raquel and Roxanne Perez the title belts, but would love Zaruka win. But Judgment Day to win would be a fun match as well. Yeah, like I say, I think Judgment Day makes the most sense. Let's move into the next match on the card. Again, really looking forward to the tag team match. And I've got to say as well, by the way, not only seeing the NXT girls in this, it's great to see the Kabuki Warriors back together. A bit last minute, don't get me wrong, but still good way to get them on the card. Right, then we have the Battle Royal. It was talked about earlier on in the comments. Battle Royals are kind of hard to predict because it's difficult to know who's even in it, let alone who's going to win it. So let's go more with that. Who do we think is going to win it? I think there's going to be some in it. I've kind of slipped up on it. Who do you think is going to be in it? I think there's going to be surprises. I think we'll have some legends here. Maybe we'll see some of the ones we saw at the first one. Maybe we'll get Lita, Molly Holly. I mean, there was a Battle Royal there, which Molly Holly herself was in. Alundra Blaze was in. Kelly was in. Maybe we could see Eve Torres. Ivory was in it. Look, we're 7 years away from that. So some of those kind of older names, maybe less likely. I did notice, though, on the Cold Open, they heavily featured Jazz. I say heavily featured, at least featured her. Love that. Really hope she shows up. I think that's someone that really deserves to get her flowers in WWE once more. So I'd love to see Jazz showing up at Evolution. The other big name here is, now it could be anywhere on the card, but this would be a good one, especially if it's just a one and done, is AJ Lee. Now, AJ Lee has been talked about ever since CM Punk come back, and I do think we will see AJ Lee again, but I do think it's been maybe significant as to when we see and when we haven't seen AJ. She didn't show up at the Royal Rumble, and I think that might be because that might have indicated she was back, and I don't know if she would be back, But by the other token, maybe you could say a Royal Rumble is a perfect place to hop in and hop back out. We see it time and time again with legends, right? And she is kind of a legend of the women's industry. So maybe this is the opposite of that. She comes back now right before SummerSlam and gets into a storyline. What do you think? Are we going to get a return of AJ Lee? As I say, we are previewing it on Friday night's big preview, but when we get to the build-up show on Sunday night, I'm going to dive into that further, hopefully with more members of the team and members of the wrestling media world. But for now, I want to know your comments on it. So let me know down below. Christopher has Stephanie Vaquer winning. I think that's a good shout. Very, very good shout, mate. I think that's probably quite likely. 14 women have been announced for the Women's Battle Royal at Evolution. Is that the case? Let me see if I can find them then. Women's Battle Royal. Let's at least go with them, and then we can talk about surprises in a little bit more detail. Entrance. Let's have a quick Google. Right, this is... don't you just hate going on a website and having to say no to cookies all the time? Right. Come on. Brilliant. That's a terrible website. I'm not going to make them look bad, but let's check this website, see if we can get it here. Lovely bit of content for you guys here. Sorry about that. Right. Apparently, Stephanie Vaquer. Okay. Favorite so far. I've only said one name, but still my favorite. Ivy now. No, good. Oh, Nikki Bella. This is where she's going to be used. Maybe, because maybe she was supposed to win against Liv, or at least go into a big storyline after that, stick around for SummerSlam. So maybe her winning here kind of leads to something else as well. What else is going to happen? So is this for anything, by the way? Is this like to become number one contender or anything like that? Yes, championship match at Clash in Paris. Okay, so get some of these comments here and I'll go through some more as well. I'm going for Stephanie Vaquer to win this one now that she's returned, says Casper. Yeah, showed up in NXT, of course, a few days ago as well, but could throw up a few surprises this Women's Battle Royal, says Casper, with an AJ Lee return, which would be nice. I could completely agree with everybody. I'd love to see AJ Lee back again, whether it's a one and done or she's back for good. Or for a few months at least. It'd be good. Right. Natalia, Maxine Dupree, Kalani Jordynne, Jada Parker. Okay, getting some of the names from NXT here. Lola Vice, /Legend, Izzy Dame, Tatum Paxley, Zelina Vega, Julia, as was mentioned in the comments earlier on, against Serge, she's not defending her US gold, and Candice LeRae. Now, out of the ones that are announced, I think Stephanie's the most likely. Next up, Nikki Bella, and then next up after that, I'd say maybe for kind of, a pat on the back sake is Natalia. Now, she's been performing outside of WWE completely different as Natty Neidhart again. And people are loving it. So it'd be great if she kind of got flowers again in WWE as well. But if not from that group there, I think Stephanie makes the most sense. And even returnees don't usually win because there's usually several and they can't all, right? But if we're going to get a return, I think AJ Lee is the top of the list of who I want to see. Will we see it? Yeah, I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go, because I feel like they held back at the Rumble for a reason. Like that, it just felt so obvious they were gonna bring her back, like that they will. That I just think it's a timing thing, and I think she deserves to be at Evolution. She wasn't at the first one, so it'd be nice. It would be really nice for a show that they've not booked that well and kind of left to strand in some ways because. It's not sold the most tickets and whatever else. Like it could be a really newsworthy show, and I really hope it is the case. And there's a lot of people wishing they were in the building for it. Right. Casper says Stephanie Vaquer most likely because they need to keep her strong. That's a good point, actually. Whether or not you do get returns for people like AJ Lee, I think Stephanie Vaquer winning does probably make the most sense here as well. But yeah, what a fun match. Even just to predict, it's kind of got me excited just to kind of even think about. So I really do hope the execution of it is as, even half as good as what we talk about. Now, of course, the next match to talk about is one that might kind of be impacted by the last, really. It's a women's title match, of course, between Rhea Ripley going up against her kind of friend in Io Sky. Again, I mentioned earlier on how Io Shirai at the time featured heavily in the first Evolution. Now, lovely to see her and still in the company, still doing really well. She went away for a bit, actually. But yeah, she's been on top of things since she come back. An interesting title run, of course. It was a storyline that was kind of basically, hey, this is the storyline where we're basically saying it's not about Io and she's going to win in the end. It's going to be okay. But it feels like ever since then, that's kind of what was true anyway. They've forgotten about her again. Is this all about Rhea Ripley winning it back? Now, Rhea is one of those at risk, just like those in the kind of class above her, ahead of her, I should say. You know, those legends of the game in Becky and Charlotte who, you know, risk of being shoved down your throat too much. Rhea, Bianca are kind of getting in that position. Well, I've been in that position really over the past few years as well. So they've got to be careful with it. As much as I love both of them as performance, I think they do have to be careful. I've got to say I love them, by the way, because I've managed to interview both of them on this very channel. What a way to have a cheap plug, eh? If you haven't already, check it out on this very channel. Myself and Bianca Belair had a great chat a while back, and I also had the great opportunity to have a fantastic conversation with Rhea Bloody Ripley as well. So again, if you haven't already, subscribe and find more content like that on this channel. But we are here for the big preview here on this amazing Friday night as we break down 4 incredible shows on this busy weekend of pro wrestling. But we are capping it off now, getting towards the end as we start getting to the main events of Evolution. As I say, Rhea Ripley going up against Io Sky, as she's known these days. Can Io keep the title? I think she should, to keep her looking strong, but I think their argument might be, well, we made her win at WrestleMania when we could have given it to Rhea then, or Bianca, and they didn't. So it kind of, look, if Stephanie wins the Battle Royal, I could see Rhea winning this and that they face each other at Clash, because I don't see them going after the other title, because of course Queen of the Ring winner is meant to be going after that title, of course, in Jade Cargill. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. So I think because they're going to be going in that direction, it might make more sense for Rhea to win. I think they might be going in that direction, but I could be wrong. Io could win, or they could do Io versus Stephanie. It was them that had that match, right, on the Raw after Mania. Was it them two? Yeah, Sky versus Stephanie. Let's have it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, Raw after Mania. Yeah, fantastic match. So maybe the rematch of that. You know, that's SummerSlam worthy. It was flipping great on Raw. So yeah, maybe it could be coming back at us. Christopher says, Women's Battle Royal is for title shots Clash in Paris, yeah, as we say. Thanks for getting that in. I'm sure you sent that in just as I was getting a bit confused about it. Anyway, Rhea Ripley is 0-4 against Io Sky. Oh, she's going to win them. she can't get to 5. Casper says, I'd love Rhea to win the title back now, but I love both of them and their work. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a big fan of both of them. It probably will be a Rhea Ripley. The only thing that makes me hesitant is because I've got some crazy stuff going on in the main event. A little spoiler for you there, but not the main event because we don't know what's going to main event, but in the other title picture is what I should say. Right. Let's start moving towards that, because the next match, I believe, is one that's also going to play into that, and I'll get to that very soon. But let's just leave it at this for now. Jade Cargill versus Naomi. Now, this match here is interesting. I mean, they've had this feud going on for a while now. Of course, Naomi turned on Jade Cargill. She attacked her. And I've been saying all along that I think Bianca Belair is in on it too. I thought it might get revealed at WrestleMania. I thought it might get revealed in time for WrestleMania to do a triple threat, or Bianca versus Jade. Didn't happen. I feel like maybe Bianca could say, you know, I got Naomi to do it for me, but Naomi gets annoyed because she felt like she wasn't backed up or whatever. There's so many stories you could tell here, but I think Bianca's got to turn heel, and I think she will turn heel. And where is Bianca? Where is Bianca? So, does Bianca return at Evolution? As I say, Evolution 1, she was just in the crowd, waving. Evolution 2, she's a big star come this point, and she is nowhere to be seen. Except all over that cold open video I mentioned earlier on. Now, sometimes that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes, if you want a secret, you keep it away. Going back to the AJ Lee prediction, she was heavily featured in that as well. I say heavily, at least in it. Bianca was heavily featured in it. But that could be just to say this is where the women's division is. They showed the history of the division. And again, it could be the same for the other people that could potentially be surprises as well, or just be shown because, hey, they're part of the history. So, I want to go with something big. I've been saying it all along that Bianca Belair is going to turn heel, and I think she could come back here and do that by beating up Jade, and Naomi wins. But then it turns into a triple threat. Or just goes Jade and Bianca. I don't know, but I just feel like Bianca could be coming back here, or she does it at SummerSlam. But for me, if it weren't WrestleMania, it's a marquee match at SummerSlam, and it could be a triple threat between the three of them, or it could be between Jade and Bianca. That's arguably not the bigger match, but like usually, the one-on-one makes more sense for a heated rivalry. But this is a story with layers, so three of them make sense as well. There is a lot they could do here. Christopher Leclerc says Jade Cargill wins in this one, and also says Bianca Belair is injured, so she won't be back before SummerSlam. But is that legit? I mean, we still don't really know about how legit or how bad, if it was legit, Jade's one was. So I don't know. Let's have a look. What are people saying at the moment? So you ended the match at WrestleMania. I don't know. I mean, there was a broken finger. Was there much beyond that? I don't know. I just feel like they've kept her away to kind of keep things fresh. And I think I think she's going to do it. Maybe if she's injured, it ain't happening yet, but I think it's going to happen at some point. Bianca to turn heel in this one. Yeah, look, I think it could. And costing Jade. Yeah, look, I think it could happen, man. If none of that happens, Jade wins. Because Jade's got to look strong going into whatever title match she's going to have coming up. And at the moment, it's either going to be against Tiffany Stratton or Trish Stratus. Speaking of which, we're going to get to that in a minute. And I'm going to be coming back to this match for good reason. Let's move on to potentially the main event, depending on what else is going on with the card. But Trish Stratus going up against Tiffany Stratton. Now, of course, these two teamed up a few months back in Trish's home country. And at the time, I remember thinking, well, they're going to face off against each other, right? Tiffany still acts like a heel, but she's a face. She treated Trish well by giving her the match, but also kind of dissed her and downplayed it, the match itself. And again, it wasn't the greatest booking. I saw a quote earlier that Trish was basically admitting, it would have been nice to have a bit more time. It weren't the greatest booking as far as getting to where we are, but it could be an interesting story to tell here. Now, if I'm just focusing on this match here, right, and I'm thinking about the future, which looks to be Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton for the title, which a lot of people would say makes sense because, SummerSlam is a marquee match, two stars of today going into the future. Yeah, I get that. And giving it to Trish Stratus, as nice as it would be for Trish, this is about the future, right? We can't be kind of just crowning people. It's one thing for them to get on the card and be represented the first time around because they never had that opportunity. But you don't want to be seen as taking a spot away. And if you're winning a title, that's kind of a risky move for a legend. But is there another story to tell here? Do we get a complete swerve? Do we get Trish Stratus winning the title, boosts her numbers, a shock, a big story in itself, only for Naomi to cash in and become champion, which means Jade Cargill versus Naomi for the title at SummerSlam. Moving completely away from Tiffany, swerving us with Trish, and if Bianca's ready, bringing her back into the fold purely on blood feud grounds. And that way we do get the triple threat. It is a marquee match at SummerSlam, and it's for the title. You could argue it doesn't need the title, but why does Naomi have the briefcase? Maybe that's what it is. Now, if you look at this match on Evolution, we've already had this feud going for a while, just between the two of them. They've dipped him in and out of it. Some might say, if it's just simply the one-on-one, then Jade versus Naomi is not the match that maybe people expected or wanted to see for the title when you could have had Tiffany and told a different story. But I don't know, man. I got a feeling that they might be telling the story that they've been telling all along and just giving it extra layers. What do you think? And if that's not the case, when does she cash in? I mean, there's a chance she cashes in on Tiffany and we get the same scenario. But I just think the Trish one would be a massive swerve as well. It's very similar to what I was saying about what might happen at Saturday night's main event. Now, if you're watching this on the replay of this on the Evolution build-up show before we go live, then you'll know exactly what happened at Saturday night's main event. It might be too similar. It might be completely different because, there wasn't shenanigans in the Goldberg match. But I just felt this was interesting. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think of my kind of fantasy book in there? Am I getting too tied up on my kind of long-term dream that I've had that Bianca's turning heel and it was all her fault? And I'm kind of looking through that too much. Christopher says Tiffany Stratton retains. Enough said. Simple for Christopher. And it could just simply be that. It could have nothing to do with a cash in or anything like that. If we just book this match on its own, I agree. But if there's more of a story to tell, if it's not going to be Jay versus Tiffany because we've got the Money in the Bank briefcase, then, or maybe she just cashes in at SummerSlam. Jade wins and she cashes. I mean, that'd be hot potato in, or maybe she cashes in to make it a triple threat. Who knows? Casper says, really looking forward to Tiffany Stratton versus Trish Stratus. Really, really loving Tiffany right now. Tiffany time should be a fun match. Christopher says, no way Tiffany Stratton loses. Really not looking like a loss for Tiffany, says Christopher. Casper says, loving Tiffany's work in WWE. It's Tiffany time. What time is it? It's Tiffany time. Look, it might continue to be Tiffany time. I think it is a very likely thing. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't bet my house on what I've just predicted. But I want to see it. So that's what I'm going with. Because as fun as Tiffany's been in her title reign, I don't think it's been like, I think I said this a while ago as well. Like, it feels like, when you're a world champion, you're made. Like, that. What do you mean, like, getting the rub by, winning it again, or, a certain wrestler beating a legend or whatever else. But I think it's kind of true. Sometimes you win the title and you're kind of like in the moment and you're still also seen as like the future, even though you've got the title. And I think there's been a few occasions where that's happened. And some of them have worked out and gone on to bigger and better things. Or bigger, the same thing again and again. Let's say CM Punk, for example, where his WWE title run in 2011 was way more kind of the crowning moment compared to his World Heavyweight Championship title runs that he'd had previously, although they were good, and that was a stepping stone. Then you look at someone like Jack Swagger, who maybe was on the cards for having that as well. When he first won the world title, it felt like, but you're still, at that time, seemed like the future, not the current thing, even though you're the world champion. So I feel like that's kind of the case with Tiffany Stratton at the moment. And also with Obafemi. I mentioned that on the NXT conversation as well. Right. Anyway, if I had to really, really kind of knuckle down and say, look, what would I more likely bet something on? I mean, if I look at the match itself, Tiffany, because I don't think Trish would be going on the run as champion. Maybe one of the mid-card titles, yeah, but not the world titles. But at the same time, I just got a sneaky suspicion there's another story to tell here. But seeing as I don't want to kind of disappoint myself, maybe I'll just downplay it and say, all right, Tiffany Stratton's going to win. And that way I won't be too excited. But I'm going to be watching Evolution, expecting it still and hoping for it. Speaking of which, I think there's going to be a lot of surprises this weekend. Will we get all the ones we've mentioned? Probably not. But I do think it's going to be a great weekend of pro wrestling. Now, we are getting towards the end of the stream now. I really hope you've enjoyed it. We've had our preview of 4 of the major shows taking place. Of course, this is being recorded before SmackDown, so hope you enjoy SmackDown as well, and Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor. But this has been your preview for NXT Great American Bash, for AEW All In. What else did we talk about? Saturday night's main event. It's been a really, really fun one, guys. Really do hope you've enjoyed it. I really hope you'll stick with us over this weekend as well. It's going to be a big, big show, as I say. Big weekend, as I say. We're going to have more shows coming at you as well. We're going to be breaking down AEW All In more detail. We're going to break down NXT in more detail, and of course the 2 WWE shows after that as well in Evolution and Saturday night's main event. Really looking forward to them. As I say, just to run through what we're going to see this weekend. Of course, you know it, I know it, but still worth kind of talking about it. AEW All In and NXT Great American Bash are going to be starting at the exact same time, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, they are going to be starting at the exact same time. We're going to be seeing those on Saturday night, of course. All in Texas, of course, a little bit different this year, not coming to you from London, but still, I honestly think All In's going to be the best show of the weekend. But I still think there's going to be big stories coming out of each of the WWE shows, more so the main WWE shows, not the NXT show. I do think it'll be good. I think all the shows are going to be good because we're going to be competing against each other, whether it be internally or against a rival company. So I think they're going to be great shows. But I do think AEW is going to still show. After all, again, it's seen as their biggest show of the year, and the card is so stacked, and it's the best built show out of all of them. Let's be honest. As much as these cards shaping up to be good, it's the best built show. Saturday night's main event features one of the most iconic wrestlers of all time, potentially retiring, potentially going out with a big gold belt as well. Who knows? But a big show there as well. And then again, I mean, talking to history, Evolution 2, it's something we've clamored for years. It's a shame it's almost lost in the shuffle here, but I've got good faith that these girls are going to knock it out of the park and kind of have a point to prove with a chip on their shoulders as well. What else? We've got a few comments here as well. Casper does think there is a scenario where Naomi cashes in on Trish, but it should be a fun match, and also says doesn't want the title to be taken off of Tiffany Stratton. I think there's going to be a lot of title changes over this weekend, purely to turn heads to each show, but some of them are surely going to stay where they are as well, right? They can't have them all. Look, we're going to be breaking it down further, as I say, over the weekend. On Saturday, you've been watching some of these clips, I'm sure, on the preview parts of the build-up shows anyway, on the replays, I should say, but we are going to have a live NXT and AEW kind of co-stream, essentially, where we're going to be breaking down the card in more detail, have hopefully some friends from the wrestling media world join us as well, and also have more members of the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling crew, and I'm sure some of you guys joining us for the ride once again. Again, at the start of these streams, we'll have replays of what you've seen tonight, but after that, stay tuned because you will get the live sections as well. And what a kind of head-to-head we've got going on there as well. Now, once AEW goes off the air, WWE are hitting you strong with the Saturday night's main event, and we are going to hit you strong with a build-up going into that as well. And as I mentioned earlier on, there's a chance that when that's on, AEW is still on. So I might even be reacting to AEW live as well, the last kind of moments on it at least. So we'll see how that goes. Really looking forward to seeing how they time these shows and how they try and counter program each other, like minute by minute and match by match and segment by segment. As I say, there are a few on the NXT card I worry about going up against AEW, but there's certainly some heavy hitters on that show and WWE show as well, as far as possible surprises go as well. Speaking of WWE, as I say, on Sunday night, we'll also have a build-up show again for Evolution. Now, if you're new here on this channel, you don't know what I'm talking about. Basically, what we do is get you guys and us hyped up and in the mood for the big PLE. And we talk last-minute rumors. We do predictions and stuff like that. As I say, the start of these shows will be a replay of what you've seen already. But the tail end, or the second half, I should say, will be live. And again, hopefully friends in the wrestling media world. Hopefully more members of the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling crew. And we have, games. We talk last-minute rumors. We have a few drinks. We talk about snacks. We get ourselves, as I say, hyped up and in the mood for the show. And what a way to hype us up for this weekend, right? With Friday night's big preview. I hope you've enjoyed it, guys. I've really enjoyed it myself. We've gone just over 2 hours, nearly 2.5 hours here, and I appreciate those that have stuck with us the whole way. If you've joined us late and you want to know my thoughts on NXT Great American Bash, then go back and watch it at the beginning. You can rewind and go back to the start of the stream. Then we went into AEW, and then we went into Saturday night's main event before capping off with Evolution. But I've been Scott. This has been the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. Guys, have a great weekend. It's not over yet. It's barely begun. And again, I'll see you plenty over the weekend as well, where we break down the cards even further with more friends of the channel, as I say, and you lovely guys as well. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Always great to see people like Casper in the house, who's been with us for some time now. But anyone that's been lurking in the background, those that commented for the first time, we appreciate you as well. Subscribe for more content like this, more build-up shows, more previews, more reviews and more interviews with wrestling superstars from around the world, as well as wrestling features and classic segments as well. We do watch-alongs of classic PLEs, for example. Casper says, have a lovely evening all. Hope you do as well, Casper. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I've been Scott. This has been the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. You've been watching our Friday night's big preview. Join us over the weekend for more wrestling content.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.